Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Xtreme Memories, exclusively on the Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel. I want to take this opportunity first off to thank all the fans. We've reached a number of episodes now, so thank you for all your support. The support's been coming in. We've been getting questions, comments. Of course, you fans can see them on the comment pages, the comments down below each video of Xtreme Memories, and also, of course, people instant messaging me. So I want to just off the bat let everybody know that if you message me personally on my Kris Kloss Facebook instant messenger, I will get back to you. I'm going to read them sometimes and then get back later. So if you see that I read those messages, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get back to you. I just read them and forgot them. I will do my best to get back to everybody that writes in. So, because I'm getting questions for everybody. I'm getting questions for my guests today. I'm getting questions for all the other guests as well. So I will get back to you guys. But again, thank you guys for your support, for your continued interest. And I'm sure my guests here can concur like this. Everybody, all of us that were part of XPW, we're pretty honored and privileged, and it's pretty special that everybody, so many people out there are still interested in XPW and in all these stories. So this show really is for the fans, because look, guys, myself, my guest here today, and all the guests, we've already done this. We've lived this. So there's no reason for us to do it for us. This is for the fans for sure. Wrestling Chatter YouTube channel, guys, please turn the red to gray. Yeah. Subscribe to this channel, everybody. Hit that bell notification button and like it.
Like and subscribe.
And share this video. Share it with anybody and everybody. Once again, welcome to Xtreme Memories. My guest at this time, people knew him as Phil, Phenomenal Phil. Or fast forward a few years, they knew him as indeed, Mr. McPhenom. Yeah,
that's right.
The leader of sport, the owner of sports entertainment in the United States, in the world, CEO of the wrestling empire, the WE. That's right. At Cold Day in Hell. So we'll get to that. Phil, first off, welcome to the show, man. It's been you and I stay in touch through text and all that, but it's been a while since we've seen each other. How you doing, man?
Awesome. Last time we saw each other, do you remember what it was?
Oh man,
it was at the Al Green concert.
Oh yes, that's right.
We ran into each other.
That's right, at the Greek.
Yeah, during the old world, the old times, when we could actually go to concerts and go out in public. Yeah,
and that wasn't that long ago. We're talking like 2017 or 18, I would say, right?
19, I think.
Oh,
it was like right before the pandemic. Yeah,
that's right. Okay, so it was 19. All right. Okay, so we bumped into each other at the concert right there at the Greek Theater, Al Green, and what a show that was. That was a
good one. That was a good one. Yeah, and we've stayed in touch over the years. Like we've watched pay-per-views and stuff together. And
that's right. Yeah. We are a shout out to Neil Sodha of downtown Los Angeles.
That's right.
For hosting those events. But and of downtown LA walking tours. Give him a plug here. So he heads down. If you want to do a walking tour, go to downtown LA walking tour. I think he
encyclopedic knowledge of LA.
This guy Neil Sodha. So look him up. All right, so Phil, I'm gonna ask you the standard question.
Shoot, man.
There's
so much to talk about, bro. So
no, I'm not doing Dr. D.
You just come at me, bro. Come at me with these questions, bro.
I'm not going to be Dr. D. David Schultz and ask you what's the standard question. But tell us, Phil, because we're going to get into XPW, the Genesis, because my friend, you were there like a few of us. You were there from the get-go, from day one, and before that. But how did you get into pro wrestling? And where are you from? Where did you grow up?
From the streets. Hey, dude. Before we even get into this, dude, I got to say, first of all, I'm a huge fan of Xtreme Memories. I've listened to and watched every episode. I think your interviews are fantastic. If I dare say, they're phenomenal. your interview with Billy, you should win a fucking award for that, man. It was so good.
Thank you.
And you know, bro, you are like, I know we talk about like Kevin being an unsung hero, and you are such an unsung hero of XPW, dude. You like you need to be on the other. You need to be interviewed because I'm sure you've got so much to talk to. You know where all the bodies are buried.
All right.
But you know, look, I mean, XPW. Yeah, it was a little rough around the edges. Everyone knows that. And you were the voice. I mean, you really fucking sold it, man. And I think you're just a fantastic commentator and announcer. And I'm not just saying that because you're my buddy. I really, really believe that. And you know, every time I've seen you in like Wrestling Society X and Cold Day in Hell, and you know, whenever I see you doing you know, commentary or hosting, I just think, man, just Kris is such a natural at this, and he's so good. It's so off the cuff and so funny, and it's great presence, man. So my hat's, I'm not wearing a hat, but it's off to you.
All right. Well,
who needs a hat when you got hair like this?
This show is not about me, man. So, but I can't thank you enough, dude. That.
What was the question again?
I don't know, man. that was. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I know you really have been watching every show because we've been texting and all that, and you've been telling me how horrible something. No, I mean how good. but no. Thank you for that, dude. And I was really been looking forward to getting you on because you really do have an interesting story, and we're good friends, and you have a good knowledge for this industry, and the business. And but yeah, so I'm kind of foggy myself until like you just reminded me we saw each other at the Al Green. I'm sure I'll remember once you tell me.
Did you have CTE too?
I'm sorry.
Do you have CTE too? like all the other wrestlers?
Seriously, no, I didn't think I did. Jeez,
you didn't take any chair shots.
Yeah, well, I did. Guido hit me with the steel sheet metal once to take the ring announcing job over. Yeah, but
he can suck your Italian sausage.
There you go, Italian sausage. so Phil, how did you get into pro wrestling, and when and you grew up in SoCal, correct?
Yeah, dude, I'm a Valley native, man. Right. So like wrestling for XPW was like perfect for me.
Right.
All right. So like, you know, growing up like as a kid, you know, I think I was in kindergarten, like, you know, the Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper thing was going on. And just even as a kid, I was like, oh my God, Roddy Piper is like the quintessential bad guy. Yeah. And like, so I started watching, you know, WWF, you know, when I was in elementary, loved like the Ultimate Warrior and Demolition, like, you know, just typical, like, you know, like a typical kid from the 80s. I loved like, you know, the guys with the face paint and the bodies and stuff. And my dad, he got sick when I was a kid. All right. And he was, he walked into a hospital, but he wasn't able to walk out. Like he had like a stroke, and like he ended up like in a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. And as I was like kind of growing up, I was like, this is like, what kind of guy, what kind of man do I become? You know, I see like guy in a wheelchair, and I see guys in the WWF like big, larger than life, like badasses that talk a lot of shit. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be, man. So I had like one of my best friends from elementary school lived in Sun Valley. Mm-hmm. And his family would order like pay-per-views all the time. And I remember watching a videotape of SummerSlam 90. And that was like my first real pay-per-view that I didn't watch it live, but I watched it on tape. And I was like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing. And I started just watching it more and more. This is like 91. And my first like big pay-per-view that I watched was WrestleMania 7 that I ordered and like invited my friends over, and you know, we were all like play wrestling and stuff. And we just
hit the 30-year anniversary a couple days ago for wrestling.
I saw it. Kevin posted that. Yeah. That was dude, I still remember that card like vividly, and I just thought it was such a fucking spectacle, man. And
it was in LA. It was in
and it was in LA, which made it even more special. I didn't go to it, you know. I watched it, but you went?
Yeah. Very lucky.
Yeah, and that like my relationship, my love affair with like wrestling, like started there. My favorite wrestler was Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. Big surprise, right? Like me, Phenomenal Phil.
Yeah, you even had the hair, man. I was joking before we went on air, but this is the hairdo almost of the original Phenomenal Phil, but your hair was longer, and it looked exactly, the curls, it looked exactly like Mr. Perfect, but dark. It was just like, it looked exactly like Kurt Hennig's hair, but dark hair.
Yeah, it was like Kurt Hennig, Bret Hart, like that was kind of the look I was going for.
Totally.
So yeah, like Mr. Perfect was like my fucking idol. I was like, oh dude, this guy is so he wasn't just like a great wrestler. He was funny. He was like such a good talker. I loved the whole gimmick, like the guy with the chip on his shoulder. I thought that was just such a great character. And there were so many good storylines back in 1991, man. Like I always thought like that the Sergeant Slaughter turncoat angle was so great. The Savage Warrior match was so great. The Cobra biting Savage, Undertaker becoming champion. There were so many good stories then, man. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I fell in love with wrestling. And then I started going to junior high, and I would be like reading like WWF magazines during homeroom, like during reading time. And I remember, dude, this one kid turns around and looks at and goes, "Hey, you like wrestling?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You listen to Dynamite D?" And I was like, "What? What the hell's that?" And he's like, "Dude, on the cable radio network, there's this radio show called what's it called? Wrestle Talk."
Wrestle Talk, yeah.
And I was like, "What? When is this?" And he's like, "Oh man, it's Saturday night. You got to listen to it." So I remember watching this freaking cable radio network on whatever Cox Cable out here, and it was just like it was like classified ads like shown up on the screen, like the bear pit and like used cars and all these like images popping up on screen, and then like this voice like came on, CRN, the cable radio network, brings you Wrestle Talk. And Dynamite D like starts talking about not just the WWF. He's talking about the NWA, WCW. He's talking about the SWF, Slammers Wrestling Federation. And I was like, holy shit.
And he would throw in every once in a while, some stuff that was newsworthy from Japan, from Mexico. Every once in a while, it just felt like, just to interject, it felt like you back then, you never had a show like that, let alone the one show talking about all the leagues.
Yeah, it opened up such a world to me. I was like, holy crap, I didn't even know this world existed. I just thought it was WWF, and that was it. So I started learning about. I called in a couple times. I know you called in a couple times. I called in a couple times. I even he had like a play-by-mail wrestling league, and that's how I came up with the name Phenomenal Phil, actually, when Dynamite D's wrestling, like in his wrestling league. And I was like, this is what I want. Like, I want to have a wrestling match one day. And I made this promise to myself. I said, okay, when I graduate high school, I'm going to have at least one professional wrestling match. Like, I have to do it. I have just to see what it's like. So, going through then like high school, wrestling hit kind of a lull in like 95. It was like wrestling was not good in 95.
What year did you graduate high school?
97.
Okay, I'm 94. I think it actually lulled in, like, to me, I thought it lulled in like 93. There was a
Yeah,
lull.
yeah.
Well,
With
90,
I think that's when the lull started. Maybe the lull even started before that, 92 even.
Yeah, it wasn't as noticeable until like 93-ish, like right around WrestleMania 9. You felt it. The format was all still the same, but when the format changed and you felt the lull, it's like, oh, this is different. Oh, and it's not as good.
Oh man, that WrestleMania 9, man, that main event. Oh my god.
I was there too. WrestleMania. I went to that at WrestleMania 9. Yeah, but it was a cool experience going there. It just sucks that was like the worst WrestleMania ever.
I don't know if it was the worst, but
I don't know if it was the worst, but you know what I mean. It's arguably the worst.
Yeah, I can't even think of any good matches on that. It was just ridiculous.
You know,
yeah, that was the high water mark.
I actually was there. I went out to Vegas. You know who else was there? Someone that I would really love to get on this show. The very first XPW champion, the real deal, Damian Steele.
Oh, hold on. I got a little something on Damian Steele, the real deal. I should probably bring this up later, but look at this. Remember I told you I found a bunch of like old old flyers and brochures. This is Damian Steele was Nick Beat.
Yeah.
In like UIWA, and he has like the bongos and
I remember
the beret. Oh my god, what a clown that guy is.
Hey, and he would come out like, "How you doing, Daddy-O?"
He had oh man, I love that guy, man. Yeah. He's something else. Yeah. All right, where were we? WrestleMania 9. So WrestleMania 9 was drizzling shits, as Rob Black would say. Yeah. WrestleMania 10. I think WrestleMania 10 sucked too. WrestleMania 11 sucked. It was just a rough time for wrestling. Yeah. I was starting to almost give up on wrestling, and then in 1996, everything just started changing, man. You know, Stone Cold wins King of the Ring, and the whole Austin 316, happens. The NWO kind of pops up on Nitro. Nitro started getting really good, and WCW started getting really good. So
and then Brett and Sean were really starting to really groove and do their thing, and it was like, oh yeah, this is getting good,
Yeah, and but what really grabbed me was a friend in high school is like, hey dude, you ever watch that wrestling that's on Prime Ticket? I'm like, what? And he's like, that's on at 4 a.m. It's just extreme wrestling stuff. And I was like, huh? So I had to set my timer on my VCR to record this extreme wrestling thing. And it was ECW.
Yeah.
Bro, that slapped me in the face. I was like, what the fuck is going on here, man?
Right.
And that opened up so many doors for me. I was like, oh my God, there's so much more that you can do with wrestling. It's not just this cheesy, men on a mission, Quebecers shit that was going on in WWF at the time. There was there were storylines with Sandman's an alcoholic, and his kid is with Raven. It was, and Brian Pillman was in a freaking wheelchair. There was all this, there was guys with broken necks being shaken around. It was just oh my God. There was the Samoan SWAT team was going to run over some guy's head with their car. I was like, oh my God, this is you can be creative with wrestling. I didn't realize that you can really be creative. So, all right. So I graduated high school in 1997. All right. And I got accepted to college. I got accepted to UC Santa Barbara. And, but I was so gung ho about wrestling at the time. I was I had played football. I'd gotten into really good shape in high school. I did I did student body, president stuff, when I was in high school. And, I was the kid that would give the speeches and turn it into a stand-up comedy routine. So I had the confidence to be in front of an audience and be goofy and be bold, and I had the physical. I just got in really good shape, and so I was like, all right, fuck this, man. the summer in between high school and college, I'm going to go to wrestling school. And I went to see, I was like, well, Slammers, it is. Like, Slammers is in Sun Valley. Like, it's right here, you know.
Where were you living?
I was in Sherman Oaks.
And you were going to what school?
UC Santa Barbara.
No, I mean, what high school did you graduate?
Oh, Notre Dame High School.
Yep.
Yeah. So I went to a Slammers show, and I gotta admit, I was not very impressed. I thought it was very outdated.
Yeah.
Very old school. Like, it was like being in a time machine, going back to the 50s or something. And there was one guy that stole the whole show, and that was a guy named Beautiful Bruce Bodine. And he ended up being Ed Ferreira, the writer in WWF, which makes so much sense because he was clearly the most creative, like, best talker, everything. Like, he was the whole show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wasn't like super impressed. And then and I talked to Vern Langdon on the phone once, and I just got weird vibe.
Who ran Slammers, Vern Langdon.
Yeah, Vern, the guy that ran Slammers, and he's like this old school. He was this old school guy who I don't know, wrestled in the 60s or 50s or something. I don't know, but he was like a really old. He was kind of creepy, like talking to me on the phone. Right. He was like, "You're gonna wrestle every Sunday and every Thursday. There's no holidays. You're not gonna be with your family on Thanksgiving. You're not going to be with your family on Christmas. We're going to do shows in Bakersfield every Sunday." And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Who is this guy I'm talking to? And I know, like, all my friends like came from Slammers, so I don't want to like knock it too much, but it was just like a weird. I was like, oh man, this is Dynamite D's thing. Like, I'm not getting the best vibe from this. So now here is where the story starts getting really crazy. So I went out to San Bernardino. Hold on, backtrack. So Dynamite D had stopped doing Wrestle Talk at this time, and it's this other guy, Shadow. Do you remember Shadow? He was doing a pale imitation of Wrestle Talk. He was doing the squared circle, and I love Shadow. He's my guy, but he was not Dynamite D by no means. And he was an EWF guy. Like, he was friends with Bill and Jesse. So I was like, okay, they're having their 1 year anniversary for the EWF, like it was May '97, and I was like, all right, let me go out there and see what it is. And dude, it was a lot closer to ECW than the SWF was, than Slammers was. It was, I remember Cincinnati Red was wrestling and doing like moonsaults out of the ring. And dude, Christopher Daniels was on the show, and Bobby Bradley, and just like bringing it, man. And I was like, it was like Hard Impact. And it was just like, you know, they were brawling in the crowd. I was like, oh, this is where I got to go, man. I got it. But the problem is I was slated to go to school in Santa Barbara, which is like 90 miles away from Sherman Oaks. And then San Bernardino is like another 90 miles or whatever, 80 miles out there. So I was like, all right, let me just, you know, hustle as much as I can this summer and drive out to San Bernardino as much as I can. I went out there like 3 days a week, Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday. I was training like clockwork, like 3 days a week. I picked it up really fast because I was like really focused and, you know, devoted to it. And I had the most amazing teachers out there. Like, obviously Jesse Hernandez is incredible, but Christopher Daniels was there every fucking day. And I got like one-on-one training from Christopher Daniels for a whole summer, like intensive training from Christopher Daniels, Bobby Bradley, Cincinnati Red. I mean, I had these like really good guys like teaching me how to wrestle. So before I knew it, come August, they were like, "Hey, Phil, you know, we need to put you on we need an opponent for this guy, the coroner. Let's put you in under a mask, and let's, you know, get you in the ring, because, you know, you gotta have ring time to, like, you know, take it to the next level." So I wrestled this guy named the Corner. That was my first match. And this guy, the Corner, he's like this Undertaker knockoff. He was 6'10". He was like 400 pounds, giant friggin' guy, man. He might have even been 7 feet tall. He was enormous. And he kicked the crap out of me in the San Bernardino arena. It was like 105 degrees. Like there's no air conditioning in the San Bernardino arena. As we know, we did a show there. And afterwards, like, does tombstone on me, puts me in a body bag, zips up the body bag, and leaves me in the ring. And bro, there's nothing hotter than being in a friggin' body bag in the San Bernardino arena in the middle of August.
Oof.
And I was like drenched in sweat, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to get out of this? Like, I can't unzip the bag, and like I don't know if Bill and Jesse were ribbing me and by not telling me what was going to happen after the match, but all of a sudden I see the bag open up and like light pours in, and I get lifted up and dumped out of the body bag, and it's fucking Louis Spicolli. Okay. And so Louis Spicolli, of all people, like came out and rescued me, and he proceeds to get on the microphone and cut a promo on the Coroner. So there was this whole like bit planned after my match that I was just not privy to at all. So I had this incredible experience, like wrestling my first match in San Bernardino. And then from there, I just kept wrestling as much as I could, and getting as many gigs as I could, wrestling for the EWF. But then, college started in September, and I had to start now making this commute. Like I would stay in college Sunday through Thursday, and then Thursday afternoon, I would drive down the coast from Santa Barbara through Sherman Oaks all the way to San Bernardino. Like we're talking, this is like a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah, that's like going
insane.
It's like going from LA to Vegas.
Yeah, it was insane. And so I would Thursday night I would train. I would come to my parents' house. I would spend the night. Then Saturday morning I would go back out to San Bernardino, and then I would make the drive and go all the way back up to school. And I did that like every week for my first like quarter. I did that every week, and then I think I started kind of like abbreviating my schedule. But it paid off because I had gotten so much ring time in. I had, kind of become a pretty proficient wrestler. I was like, coming into my own as a wrestler, learning the craft, and becoming confident in the ring. And then a group of guys from the EWF like kind of broke off and started this wrestling company out in Simi Valley called the IWF.
Yeah.
And that was Gary Crusher Key.
Right.
That was Cincinnati Red. Like they started this league called the IWF.
Yeah.
And they brought in all these ex-Slammers guys. They brought in White Trash Johnny Webb. They brought in Uncle Jess Hansen. They brought in Lester and Joey.
Right.
Lester
and Joey were with UIWA at that time.
No, UIWA came after the IWF. It was the UIWA came from the the ashes of the IWF.
Got it.
So yeah, IWF. It was really good. Like they ran like every 2 weeks. Red was like running the school there, and it was in Simi Valley. It was way closer to Santa Barbara for me. So I went from, wrestling all the time for the EWF in San Bernardino to wrestling now all the time for the IWF in Simi Valley. And on the first show, I wrestled White Trash Johnny Webb. And Webb and I had this like series of matches that like went, we had like really good chemistry together because like the Phenomenal Phil character, the straight guy, like, kind of pretty boy, and then White Trash Johnny Webb, the clown, the guy from the trailer park. We always had like really good chemistry. So, I wrestled, I did a series of matches with him. I did a series of matches with a guy named Johnny Hemp.
Flying too high to die, Johnny Hemp.
Yeah, no, we had a tag team. It was a phenomenal buzz.
I remember going to an SECW show before I started ring announcing, And I just remember Johnny Hemp, and his catchphrase was "Flying too high to die," and he would come out to the ring and with the hemp flag, and then like he was a face, and then the little kids, the little hempsters. I'm like, this is 20 years ago, folks. Like even now, it just like didn't make sense. The little hempsters, and they were. Anyway, I digress. I just thought always
bad influences. Parents are bad influences.
Yeah, but it was like he's a good guy. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So we at the IWF, we plucked this guy out of the crowd to be part of Johnny Hemp's stable. And we, it was this kind of like light-skinned black guy with like dreadlocks, really thin. And we were like, dude, you've got such a great look. You need to be part of like the wrestling show. And it was Doc Marley. Okay. It was the guy that became Doc Marley. It was in Jason Levin, who unfortunately is another guy that's passed away. There's like so many. Yeah. Although, like, I know he was an XPW turncoat, but
hey, that's
it's water under the bridge. Yeah,
it's still he passed away. It's an unfortunate thing, of course.
Yeah, no, he's my bro. So he was my guy. Like I was friends with everyone, whether they were aligned with whoever they were aligned with. It didn't matter. So IWF kind of like fell apart. I'm taking bookings all over California, San Diego, APW up in San Francisco, NWF out in Palm Springs, SEC. I did some SECW stuff. I was just wrestling UPW all over. UIWA popped up like in 99, I think, like kind of
98,
coming out of it.
98.
Yeah, 98, 99.
Yeah.
That's at the time. So head referee Pat Hernandez, he would, at these shows, he would pull me aside and be like, "Hey, Phil, come here. I know this guy. He's got a lot of money, and he wants to make this wrestling promotion, and like we want you to be in the wrestling promotion." And I was like, "What? Like this guy's got a lot of money. Like, what does he do?" And Pat's like, yeah, he's in the adult entertainment industry." And I like
a good Pat. You do a good Vince McMahon and a good Pat, and I'm sure a good few others.
Boy, I got all of them. And so after a while, like Pat, he kept like pulling me aside, like really secretively, like at all these shows. And he's like, "Hey, just so you know, it's happening. It's like it's coming." And so finally, like in 99, like I kind of had blown it off at that point. I was like, "Oh, that shit ain't happening."
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts like calling me. He's like, "Hey, Phil, this thing's happening." And he's like, "Phil, you got to come down for this meeting and meet Rob Black and meet this, the whole team." And I was like, in the middle of finals, I was like, "Bro, I can't come down now, man." Like already like wrestling was taking a lot of time away from school for me. And like coming down to like meetings during the week was like when I've got like finals was hard. So I ended up Rob wanted to like talk to me on the phone. And so Pat was like, "Okay, like if you can't make this meeting, like, you got to talk to him on the phone. He wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." So I had this like long ass phone conversation with Rob Black one night. And he was like pushing so hard for me to like join him. I guess at that meeting didn't go well with like all the local talent. Like I guess some guys, he was probably like Craze and Beautiful Jack Stud. He was probably I don't like these guys.
I can elaborate on what you're talking about right there when you want.
Okay, so elaborate now, man.
So yeah, there was well, thank you. You're great storytelling, man, and I don't want to interrupt this at all, dude. So, but yeah, there was a meeting at one point when we all came in, and I went to stop at my family's house, and I'm like, my folks and my uncle, all my family was there, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to this meeting about this wrestling," because I was already doing wrestling on the indie level, and then I kind of told them the story. It's going to be a big deal and all that. And then I remember my mom's like, "You got to put a suit and tie on," and I'm like, "Nah, this is just the guys. It's no big deal." And they're like, "Maybe I do." And my whole family, I'm like, "All right, you know what? yeah, all right. And then fast forward, Kevin told me like afterward, when we had that first meeting, Rob didn't know any of us from Adam, you know. And then I guess Rob like went off to the side to Kevin, like, who's the guy with the suit and tie on? And Kevin's like, oh, that's our announcer, Kris Kloss. And I had barely done anything, dude, at this point. You know, I've ring announced, but and I'm just like, you know, like, wow, you know, that was an early lesson for me in my life as a young man. Like, you know what? They were right. You look the part, and it goes a long way. So, but the second, I remember the second meeting we had, we were all there, and I remember like beautiful Jack Stud, Eddie the photographer. We were all sitting down, and a few other guys. Doc Marley was there, and I remember, I do remember Doc specifically, kind of like everyone was just kind of bullshitting, and we didn't really know who Rob was yet. Rob was like stealth mode. He would like walk through the office, and we didn't know, because you look at Rob, like you wouldn't think
he does not look like what he sounds like.
No.
Like when I talked to him over the phone, I expected someone like with the like looking like Robert De Niro or something, and like he ends up looking like Rob Zombie.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Right, and if you didn't know, this office full of misfits wrestlers and even some adult film people. And then you see Rob, he just like fit into the mold. He was just like some dude you see on the streets of LA and Hollywood or whatever, you know? So no one knew who he was, but he was going through listening to everybody. And next meeting, like half the guys were gone just from him hearing how everyone was talking. And there were guys like Doc and some others that were just like, you know, I think the wrestling business needs to do this. And I think this, that, and the other. And like kind of like armchair quarterbacking a little bit. And I just remember like, even though we weren't in a meeting, I even remember then like, dude, like just, we don't need to talk like this right now. Like just be cool, you know? And sure enough, man, like that was a weeding out process before we knew who Rob was. And he was just walking through. And I think Kevin mentioned that to me later. Like that was like what he was doing. You know, he wanted no one to know who he was and just get a feel for everybody. And sure enough, like I said, dude, like luckily, like myself and a few others were like, all right, I guess.
Pass the mustard, man.
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. So I think when you're talking about those early meetings, that was a very important one. The first two, we just kind of showed up that first one when I had the suit on, and then I guess I was all right. I guess I don't need the suit anymore, you know. And I just came, but yeah, like please continue. But I wanted to just throw that in there because that was a big moment for a lot of people, good and bad.
Yeah. So all right. So I had this crazy phone call with Rob Black where he's like, "Yeah, is this Phenomenal Phil?" And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I heard you're, you know, you're this young hot shit wrestler, and you know, we want you in the production, but you got to be exclusive to us. And he's like, you got to stop wrestling for all these drizzling shit wrestling promotions. First of all, this guy, I never even heard the phrase drizzling shits before, and I have not heard it more since. Like, I remember he said, I was like, what the fuck? Drizzling shits, and you have this like mental image of what it is, and then like it's just like every other thing is drizzling shits. Drizzling shits. He also said this thing that cracked me up, jadrool. He's like, this jadrool, fuck.
Jadrool. Yeah.
And dude, like I went back to my college friends and I was like, oh my god, this guy. Let me tell you what this guy was saying. So anyway, so he's like, you got to be exclusive. You know, I can't have you, you know, wrestling from fucking Bill and Jesse and all, you know, and I was like, look, I want to wrestle for you, but I'm a young wrestler. Like I've only been wrestling for 2 years, you know, 2.5 years. I need to get ring time to get better, you know? And he's like, you need ring time. You come and you can train in my ring. We got a ring here in the warehouse, in the office. You just come here and he was selling me so hard and like he was giving me the hard sale big time. And I was like, I like this guy. Like, I just fucking like this guy. And I was like, bro, all right, you sold me, man. You sold me on the phone. I'll do it. I'll be exclusive to you. And I was like, bro, are you going to be in the wrestling promotion? Like, are you going to be a character? Because you've got such a good personality. And he's like, that's not me. I'm a behind the scenes guy. I don't want none of that, which of course is bullshit. All these, every money mark I've ever met has always wants to be in the fucking show.
I don't know. I don't know if that was his intention right away. He might have sincerely thought that he was going to be behind the scenes, but yeah, you're right. Like, whether the intentions are there or not, it always evolves into that. Whether they want to or don't want to be in front of the camera, it always happens that way. With the promoter and all that, it just does.
Yeah. Well, and he going to what you said, like, I would say for the first 6 months of XPW, he was very, like, he was trying to be like Paul Heyman, you know, like, I remember backstage at those shows, he would have this monitor set up. He would be like sitting in front of the monitor with his like headphones on, like just focused intently on like what was going on in the ring. He had his little headset in that he was like, you know, like giving instructions to Pat and Danny and their earpieces. It was like, you could tell, like, I know from what he said that he had like a fucking serious grudge with Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you another story about that. So I guess he had been in ECW, like Rob, and there was one of these. So okay, I was a college guy working in a porn company, so obviously Rob would give me like a bunch of porn to, like, you know, take. And Webb one day he hands me this video and he goes, "Hey, like, if you want to see Rob in ECW, watch this video." And it was like called Whack Attack 2 or Whack Attack 5, some crazy title like that. And so I take it home and I put it in the VCR and I watch it, and like there's like the porn scenes and stuff, but in between the porn scenes were all these like wrestling vignettes, and there was like Rob had brought a cameraman down to like ECW, and he was dressed up in the black suit with the black slicked hair and the mustache. And he was like at ringside with, I don't know who, the Irish Roadkill, some, you know, mid-card dude. Mm-hmm. And I think Jasmine might have been with him. I don't know.
Yeah. That's
but it was all on this video.
That's where they were working. They were working in conjunction because Rob was getting girls for the product, for the ECW product at the time. He was giving.
Makes sense.
So Jasmine was in the ring cutting promos and all this. She was not with ECW. She was under contract with Xtreme Associates at that time, and then a couple others that Rob and Paul were working together at that time.
Yeah, and so like on this video, there's you got to find this thing, dude, because it had like Bubba Ray Dudley in the video, Tommy Dreamer in the video, like and Bubba Ray Dudley and stuff. Hope that video never comes out, because he would be canceled if that video ever came out. So the word that I got was that I just heard through the grapevine that Paul Heyman got really annoyed with Rob, because Rob's obviously a very vocal guy and very opinionated. Mm-hmm. And I guess he was telling Paul like how to do things, and Paul was like, "Get out of here. I don't need you," you know, and like kind of like sent him packing. And I guess that's why he started XPW, right? Because he was
and also remember, like, this. I don't know if this is the reason, but it's became kind of the official reason, which was when ECW was in talks with TNN, which turned into Spike TV, but at the time TNN, to have a national show for ECW. I think that's when that's when he had to distance himself from Rob because of the adult.
Okay.
The adult world. Now what you're saying though is what I've heard too before, which has never been like totally public, which is they didn't get along. And look, dude, if you know who Rob Black is, and if you know who Paul Heyman is, you know for sure that
there's no way they would get along. No way.
They're too similar. They're too similar to get along. And it was oil and water, and it was just like
two alpha dogs.
Totally. No and not only alpha, but just the similarities of these two alpha dogs. You can just know, like, of course that wouldn't work, you know? So that was it. That was the parting. And then just to touch on what you're saying, that's when we get into the time where we were handing out SCCW flyers at the Pond in Anaheim Honda Center, and wherever else where WWE, WCW would come. And then that's when Rob got one of our flyers, and that's when he had already made the decision to start his own thing. I'm not going to work with ECW anymore. I'm going to start my own thing on the West Coast.
Yeah. And if you were an indie wrestler in the late 90s, like, you heard like the amount of promoters that said, "Oh, we're going to be the West Coast ECW." Like, oh my God, it was like a dime a dozen. Like, all of them were like, "Oh, we're going to be the West Coast ECW." It's like, yeah, I don't think so. But when Rob came around, I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, we might have something here. So I was sold. I was like, okay, this guy, he's got like a big production. He's got, all these video cameras and all these editors,
right. And money,
and web editing for him. Yeah, he had money. It was like he was burning money. Like, the amount like that he was just spending on booking like these venues and stuff. I don't know how he kept going. I heard I don't want to say on camera, but I heard some numbers of like money amounts that he might have lost, and yikes, it's scary.
Which shows you how much money was coming in, though.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
See, the thing is,
remember, they kept having like new cars. Like, Tom would have like a new Ferrari, and like
there were like Mercedes, Escalades, BMWs, Cadillacs, and all that. And I just especially for young viewers, like, the adult film business 20 years ago was not like it is now, where everything is free on the internet. You had to pay
everything is like very like kind of graphic now, and I feel like everything now is like a copy of what Rob did. Yeah, like, because Rob this stuff was extreme. It was very extreme.
He was when I said this on an episode or two on Xtreme Memories in the past, but he was controversial for the adult film world, not just for wrestling. He was controversial in a controversial entity, industry.
So, yeah, that's where like there were some kind of like red flags there, where I was like, he's considered the most hated man in porn, which is already kind of like a business that's not on the up and up. Like, wow, what did he do to become the most hated man? Like, he must not be. And like, so right off the bat, I had already just like a couple like things where I was like, oh, this doesn't add up. Like, he kind of like BS'd me a little on the phone. He was like, I was like, so you saw my match up in San Luis Obispo? And because I had this hardcore match up in San Luis Obispo, that Pat was like, oh, Rob saw this match, and he really wanted you, after seeing this match. And then when I talked to him, he was like, I never saw that. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, wait a minute, but I know, like, Pat told me you like. And I was like, why the fuck would you lie about it? Like, who cares,
Right.
And then at the first show, so all right, now begins the show and tell portion of the show. So,
so you're talking about the first ever XPW show?
Yeah. So, all right, Daniels was like my mentor, and Christopher Daniels, he told me like that, you can't really make a lot of money in wrestling. You got to like, develop your own merchandise. You got to sell 8x10s, and Chris Daniels had a t-shirt. Okay. So this is what, do you remember this? This is the shirt that I had. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was the front. And then on the back, it said, I can see that. There we go. Phenomenal. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So I had this shirt that I had this box of shirts that I would fucking lug around to like every indie show and stuff. And on the first XPW show, Rob had all these shirts printed up for Jimmy, and hold on. Show and tell time resumes. Hold on. Check this out. I dug into an old box today, and so we've got Lester's nice, original shirt. Okay.
Oh, awesome, man!
Look at that. All right.
Damn, that's a rare one.
Yeah, this freaking. These are all like from the first show, dude.
That was the first Supreme shirt.
That was the first one. Yeah.
Wow, man!
And check this one out. This one, I mean, I even cut the sleeves off this one. That means I wore this one. Like a welfare check, like Roddy Piper's reality check.
Those look cherry. They look brand new.
Yeah, they are. I haven't really worn these very much. Wow. The Westsiders, my boys.
Yep. The late great Big Rott.
Yeah, and one of my very best friends. So I do want to talk a little bit about him lately. Here's Jimmy's original. Look at that. Hungry, homeless, and hardcore. Nice,
dude. Those bring back a lot of memories, man.
And of course,
Xtreme Associates 316.
Extreme 316. And on the back, this is the one that you can't quite wear to Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah, you're not wearing that one. Okay.
This is the late 90s and the early 2000s, kids. This is the world we lived in, man. You
had to have shirt. You had to. I mean, it's kind of how it is now too. Like, you're not going to make it as off bookings. You're going to you have to sell merchandise. That's wrestling's all about pushing tickets and putting asses in seats and selling T-shirts and $5 hot dogs. So all right. So I asked Rob before the show. I was like, "Hey man, can I sell my?" This was my bad. Okay, like I got greedy. I was like, "Hey Rob, can I sell my shirts alongside your shirts?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay, why not? Sure, go for it." And I was like, "All right, how much are you selling your shirts for?" And he's like, "Oh, the shirts are going for $20." And I was like, "All right, I want to sell mine for 18." And he's like, "What? No, all the shirts got to go for 20. If you want your shirt sold, it's got to go for 20." And I was like, no, I really want, I sell for 18, and it was just so stupid and so greedy. I was trying to undercut Rob, and he's like, fine. All right, 18, fine, whatever. And so I leave the shirts with him and his guy. And then after the show, I come back to, get the shirts because, I got to lug those around. They were gone, man. They were like, and I asked the guy who was selling them, I was like, "Hey dude, where are my shirts?" And he just like ignored me. And then I went and I found Rob and I was like, "Hey dude, do you know what happened to my shirt?" And he was like, and I was like, "Wait a minute." And it just like the light bulb went off. I was like, "Oh shit, this is the kind of guy that like we're working with right now. This is the kind of guy like, if you have an argument with him, he'll throw your shirts in the fucking garbage." Or like, I don't know if he threw them in the garbage, and I don't know if he did anything to him, but I had this argument with him, this disagreement, and then my shirts were fucking gone.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, I'll just eat that. It's not a big deal. It's funny. He unfriended me on Facebook because I told that story.
Oh,
shit. Yeah. He was like, "Are you saying that I took your shirts?" I was like, no, Rob, forget it. He said it was another urban legend. Like all these stories are urban legends, of course. Like it's fucking Sasquatch or something. So, all right, first show, I wrestled Webb.
Yeah, at Reseda Country Club, July 31st, 1999, and the whole buzz leading up to that. It was phenomenal. It really was, and.
Dude, it was a hot show, man. That first show.
We were coming off the heels. You were working with IWF and all that, and kind of with UIWA, and I was with SCCW. All these groups from SoCal came together under the umbrella of this brand new company, XPW, and we knew, like you were saying, we had the money behind us. We had all the production advantages of already having this studio with equipment and everything. Professional stuff, and knowing the money behind this, and soon to be a TV product, home video product, and now our commercials at the time for these new live shows were all featured during Monday Night Raw, during SmackDown, during Nitro. So when we were like still fans at home watching Raw and Nitro, here comes our XPW TV commercial for
the silhouetted wrestlers.
Yeah, the silhouetted wrestlers in the warehouse and
tables.
Yep, with the voiceover and all the cool graphics, and it was like, oh man, that it felt big, especially for those. That was unheard of at the time for spots to be on USA Network, on TNT for Raw and Nitro and all that, and every episode, and even like on Thunder, like they blanketed these shows locally for SoCal for these commercials. So that was unheard of, like we're saying at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, whoa, the buzz before this show, it was like nothing California, like a local level.
Everyone wanted to go.
And let me just say this, Phil, this was probably the first time on this level locally in California since, you could say arguably UWF, Herb Abrams, but he didn't do all this promotion that we did on cable. But there was no buzz until when XPW hit. There hadn't been a buzz locally since before Vince took over the territories in the early 80s of Southern California. Like the 82, the territory days died at the Grand Olympic. This was the first time since then that there was like a local buzz for a giant wrestling promotion in the greater Los Angeles area or Southern California. So
I mean, I think the only other thing you can compare it to is maybe Lucha Underground, maybe. Like that's the only other thing you can compare it to.
That was years later, though.
Yeah, that's the only other thing. But it was big, and like I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I was the guy who ended up like I invited my whole family to this show, and I didn't realize I knew obviously like he was involved in the porn business, but I didn't know that it was going to quite overlap as much as it did. And so like I had like friends there and like aunts and uncles and like my bodybuilding mentor was there and I think we're hosting the Miss Xtreme pageant. And I
did not actually. Tom Byron
hosted. Tom, okay.
Yeah, I did the whole intro to the show, hosted it, and then I went up and did the announcing at the XP Wrestling table there.
Okay,
yeah.
But anyway, man, I just remember that Miss Xtreme pageant, and like he's going like asking each girl, like there's a girl with like bug tattoos all over her. There's like this big fat black chick, and then like why should you be Miss Xtreme? Oh, why should you be Miss Xtreme? And then he gets to Christy Mist, and obviously Christy Mist is like the hot, big chested chick. And Tom goes, and why should you be Miss Xtreme? And Christy goes, well, because I take it in the ass. And the whole arena erupted in like laughter and it went fucking crazy. And I like, well, we were all laughing in the back, but I was like, oh my God, I got like family here. Needless to say, I didn't invite family to any other XPW shows after that. But dude, this is the culture of XPW. Like I've never experienced anything like that in my entire life. Like I'm a producer, and I actually interview people like this all day long. And I always ask people like, what's your craziest story? Or like, what's your most memorable thing? When you're in a bar with your best friend, what's that story that you say where you're like, oh, hey man, let me tell you this one unbelievable thing. For me, it's when I was in college, traveling California as a wrestler and working for this porn company. Yeah. It was this insane culture with Xtreme Associates. I mean, dude, I gotta tell you a story, man. So I like you go up and down that card of like wrestlers, and it's like that he slept with her, she slept with him, like that they ended up getting married, they ended up getting divorced, like there was this affair, there was that affair, like the whole thing was crazy. Like he wanted to sleep with her, and like this guy did porn. Like I saw, like, I'm not going to name names, but Webb pulls me into the edit bay one day and he's like, hey, come here, look at this. And it was like, like this porn scene from like the guy's like waist, like, I don't know, chest down or something. And I was like, all right, I don't need to watch this. He's like, oh, no, keep watching. And I'm like, all right. And so then like the scene ends and the camera pans up and it was a very prominent XPW wrestler.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, what world is this?
Right.
And dude, there was another time. This is the dirty part of the show, I guess. I only knew the office by the airport on Leadwell Street.
Yeah.
And so, Rob, he always wanted me come. He's like, you got to come to these meetings. And, it's a one day we come to this meeting and, you walked in like down that hallway where there was like all the posters and stuff.
Right.
And like, I'm rolling my travel bag and I've got my fanny pack and my big parachute pants and, very, very 90s. And I've seen these guys like walk down the hallway and they're just wearing boxer shorts and they're like freaking dongs are hanging out and they're like rubbing their junk. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
And then, you enter into the pit where all like the desks were. And it like the whole place was pitch black and there was like lights set up.
Yeah.
And there was this girl who like 36, 24, 36, naked as a jaybird.
Yeah.
And she was there. And, it's a very like loose culture at XPW. Like there was drug use, there was, white powder on tables and it smelled like weed all the time. And there was like a bottle of pina colada mix on the, because I guess they drank pina coladas. And I saw the photographer. He had like a medical Q-tip that he was dipping into this pina colada bottle, this pina colada mix. And he was like dabbling it on this girl. And he does it. And then he's like, all right, I'm ready. Come on, guys. And the guys like come in and they all like stand in a circle around this girl. And he starts like taking pictures. They weren't filming a scene, but they were filming like box cover art or something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that's the kind of stuff that you came into that office and you saw. There was another time, this is also probably way too graphic.
It's all right.
There was where so I came in for a meeting once and it was like really serious and everyone like it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop and everyone is around like Webb in the edit bay. All the wrestlers are there and everyone's like kind of like got their arms folded and looking really stern. And I'm like, what's going on? And Webb's like, look at this. And he hits play and it was a porn that was filmed in our wrestling ring in the warehouse. And it wasn't just normal porn. It was enema porn. Okay. Yeah. In our ring that we have to wrestle in. Okay. And so like, we had like a mini mutiny. Like we were like, we're not doing this. Like we're not wrestling in this ring where there was, an enema going on, and there was porn being filmed. And Rob's like, hey, come on. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. And I had to kind of like say, okay, look, let's replace the canvas. Let me go get a canvas from Bill and Jesse, like buy one from Bill and Jesse and let's replace this canvas. And so Rob's like, all right, we'll replace this canvas. So I had to go schlep out to San Bernardino to get this friggin' canvas. And it was, so anyway, that's the canvas got replaced in XPW because there was a porn filmed in the ring. Jesus, where was I, man? It was we're talking about the culture of XPW.
Yeah, we're talking about the culture.
Insane.
We started talking about the first show, the buzz and all that in your match, and that got we were talking about, because I invited my family too to that first show. And we got an early lesson like, oh, wow, okay, we know how it is in the office. We've already experienced that before the first show. And I was there that day too, by the way, with all the photographer and the dudes. You know, I think it was the same one you're talking about. But then again, it might not.
Well, that day I remember, I think it was Felony, like whistled at the girl or something, or like catcalled her or something. And Rob like fucking slams the door open and he's like, "Who said that? Who did that?" And he was like, we were all like, you know, I'm putting on my boots. I'm like, I didn't say anything.
You know what that was a lesson in, dude? I feel like that was a lesson in, like, we all knew kayfabe in the back as the boys and how to behave in the back. It was almost like we were getting an education on kayfabe within the adult world. You don't mark out when you're in that office like some horn dog. Like, no, this is a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and these people, like, you know, you got to respect them for what they're doing.
Dude, these are,
you might not agree with
you can say what you want and disagree with what they're doing, but at the end of the day, they're human beings. They're making a living and they're doing their thing. And so, dude, exactly. It's no different. You know, and there are people in society that are like snooty and upper echelon, you would think are good, upstanding people, but that would look down. See, now that is one thing about kind of like the black sheep of the wrestling industry, the black sheep of even the porno industry that Rob Black was. But honestly, like, there's if you could say one good thing, and I could say some good things about Rob Black. One, he gave us all the
definitely
a lot.
100%.
I actually 100%. I liked Rob. He's
very charismatic. Funny.
We had our ups and downs. Yeah, we had our ups and downs, me personally. But ultimately, dude, I liked it, man. I liked going in there. I liked the personality, man. I liked his style, you know. But I remember, like, thinking one thing you could say about Rob, he knew his shit stank. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there could be people that look down and you guys are scum. Rob knew exactly who.
He was like, "Fuck you." Yeah, I know what I am, you know.
Rob knew exactly what he was. He wasn't pretending to be anything. And you have to admire that and the moxie that went along with it, which is why he was able to look. It's very difficult for promoters to control a locker room full of ego-driven pro wrestlers. He, I think, did a phenomenal job on controlling pro wrestlers, more than most I've seen ever, because he knew how to, like, turn it up, and then like, not remember who's the boss here. Yeah, okay, you know, he had a good balance with that, I thought, because I've been a part of other leagues before and after that. I've never seen that delivered as Rob did. From that position.
He's a guy who really knew how to convince people to do stuff. Like, whether it was convincing girls to do enema porn or convincing guys to jump off ladders and set themselves on fire. Like, he knew he was just one of these guys. He could, you know, talk Phenomenal Phil off the phone, like, into being exclusive. He's one of the most interesting guys I've ever met in my life. Like, he's probably the most colorful character I've ever met. And just so interesting. And I mean, like, look at it from my point of view. Like, after I left XPW after 9 months, and I'm hearing these stories, like, about the Messiah, like what happened to him, and about like the feds raiding them, and I'm like, what? This guy is like, what the hell is with this guy? There's just like a new story about him every fucking week.
Yeah, it's like, and that was like the norm for us. Like, we would go into that office. It's literally like going to an XPW show, like how the fans to this day write in. Like, one fan told me, a couple fans told me that I never ever had that experience before and after XPW that I miss so much today, to where, like, the element of danger, the element of, like, there's no control here. I never knew what I was.
Chaos. Yeah, like, no pun intended.
Right.
Like, Rob Black was all about chaos.
Yeah, and like, they explained to me, like, man, I missed that, because I really had this element of, like, on a Saturday night when I was going to an XPW show, it was like going to like some underground punk thing that wasn't totally regulated. You didn't know what was really going to happen. And he just explained to me in this long paragraph on Messenger, which I will get back to you, my friend. I haven't got back to that one, but
that's all right.
But that it was
I'm going to interview you one day, dude, because you've got all the stories, bro.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to interject on all these interviews as much as I can without taking away from the guests, but it's difficult. There's some fans that have said, I need to let the guys talk more, but then there's other people that I want to hear what you have to say. So I'm not going to.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay,
you've got the like. I was only there for 9 months. You've got the inside track.
That's fine, and I'm here to interview at the end of the day. But like the way they expressed to me, like I never have had that feeling ever since like going to the Olympic, going to the old Reseda, going to those shows where it's like I've never had that feeling in wrestling. Maybe like glimpses of it here and there, but every XPW show was that element of I didn't know what to expect. That was also our world just going into that office.
Yeah. Just that office was like, it was like stepping into like another dimension. Like when you went through that gate, like into that little parking lot with the dumpster and oh my God. And I vividly remember going in and like there was a new like receptionist, like whether it was Jimmy or Doc Marley or Damian Dallas, like there was always like a wrestler. There was all these and every week I went in, there was like a new wrestler working there. Like they were like working in the warehouse, and it was just and Tom Byron, like Luciano, like all these guys like work. They were like the wannabe porn stars that were like working in the warehouse. It was such a weird.
So I remember this one guy who wasn't like a main, like a big porn star guy, but he was like you'd always see him in the scenes, and I remember one day I came to the office and he's just like with the backpack over one shoulder, sneakers on and all that. I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, man? You go, oh, Kris, how you doing, dude? I forget his name, but tall guy, white guy, blonde hair. And he was like, oh yeah, man, I just came back from school. Oh, where you go to school? Oh, I go to CSUN. And I'm just like looking at him like just this normal dude you see at CSUN, college student walking around the campus. You wouldn't know from Adam. And he's in this whole world of extreme adult entertainment, and he was like, no, he didn't cover his face or anything, but it was just like so almost like educational from like a kid that like watched porn or whatever, like every boy does and all that. But like to like
shame on you.
Shame on me. I know. Can you believe it? Right. But it's kind of like when you get that education, and again, going back to the kayfabe of that, we learned from that adult film world. Like we see at the time, especially back then, folks, like Phil and I, we talked about this at Neil's before. Like when we were in XPW at that time, that was like the kind of the end, but kayfabe was still alive then. We kind of experienced that, like
we had the tail end of it. Yeah,
we did, and it was very important to hold that, right? And it's like, so what is kayfabe? It's like we protect the business from the marks, right? The marks, they're going to act a certain way in the audience that we're not going to act back here because they don't know what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. Well, dude, we literally got that education. Like you say, when Felony like catcalled that girl and all that, that was Rob telling us like, dude, there are marks watching porn, buying those videos. We don't act like those marks here in the adult film industry. And it was like, dude, it was so true, dude. And then so you add to that experience that I have of watching this regular dude going to school, CSUN, with his lunch and his backpack.
Wait, so you were in college too? You were going to CSUN?
Yeah, I stopped actually when XPW started. I did the opposite you did, which I want to get into with you a little bit, why you stopped with XPW. But I actually was going to a place called Pierce College, and I was going to transfer to Cal State Northridge.
I just got my vaccination shot there. I know Pierce
awesome.
well.
Okay, yeah. Pierce, great school. And then so I actually at the time I was in a transition period. I wasn't ready for school yet. And then when XPW kicked in, I took time off. I was ready to almost transfer to CSUN, But I was like, well, I'll focus on this, you know, and I had a job and all that too. So I actually stopped. I stopped going, which I was probably going to anyway, and take some time off. But then when XPW came, it was like, nah, this is what I'm doing. I then fast forward for myself. I moved to New York. I had a part in a play, a Broadway show, Alice in Wonderland. Great experience. I lived there for a year. But when I came back to LA after that year, I went back to school and I finished up CSUN then. And then Wrestling Society X rolled around. So for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, I had nothing. I just was school. I didn't have a life. I was just finished school. I was so determined.
Yeah.
And one of the things that determined me was when I lived in New York and I didn't have a degree yet, and I was taking the subway every day. And I walk into the subway and I'm like seeing everybody with their suit and ties and all this. And I just remember like that lit that fire for me to just, now I got to go back, finish school, you know, because I'm in this train doing this acting stuff, but I'm also seeing just the 9-to-5ers in New York. And then that really kind of just motivated me to, once I got back, boom, I just finished. And it was hard, but I was like, I just bogged down. So yes, I did go see some, but not in those days. But seeing those guys come into the office, it was like, again, that education for the kid that was just watching this stuff on TV, like kid watching wrestling. And it was like you almost had more respect for the people in the adult film industry because they were doing something professionally, but it was the public that was watching it for the smut aspect of it. Like I found a new respect for Rob and all these people in the adult film world because I noticed like all the criticism that came in to the adult film world. And only reason we know that is because we were in the wrestling business, but
it's a lot of hypocrisy.
Yeah, that we were sharing that office, but the public, you noticed it at the time, like the religious right, and if from both sides, Democrat, Republican, because I remember even the Democrats like Tipper Gore and Al Gore, they were big on censoring porn. And I remember thinking like, dude, all these people that are talking shit about this, that are the marks, and the people here are really taking it seriously, and it's a business supplying a product that the public wants. And knowing that porn is like the #1 thing worldwide on the internet and purchase things, yet this industry is getting attacked by all these people that are already watching this stuff. So we had a good lesson on, wow, the hypocrisy is amazing, man. And I think we see that even more today, man, with certain things. I won't get into it, but like with the culture we live in, that people are very hypersensitive about certain things, and that's fine. There are certain things that need to be mended, but at the same time, it's like the hypocrisy. There's a level of it that there's some still hypocrisy behind that, and I just know that firsthand because we experienced all that. We were there. We saw that, man. So Phil, going back now to the first ever show, XPW, we talked about how just crazy the buzz around SoCal. Probably the first time the buzz had been around since the early 80s in Southern California for professional wrestling, outside of WWF, WWE, and even the NWA. So that was the first show. And I mean, the who's who were there. Like you had celebrities that came to that show. You had everybody from the wrestling world, Jesse Hernandez, all them, like everybody was there that first night, and you could tell, man, it was different. So what was the buzz for you around that first show, and then the reactions after that first show had ended? What was that all to you? How did that feel?
It was the biggest show probably that I had been involved with at that time. I mean, you know, I'd been in some big shows where it was like, you know, several hundred people, but not like, I mean, I don't know what the gate was at the Reseda Country Club, but
it was like I remember it was sold out. It was right around 1,000, like give or take. Like I think the venue held that much, 1,500 maybe. I don't know, but all I know is it was totally sold out, and the tickets were expensive for that first show.
Yeah, they were like $25, which is crazy
for the cheap seats. Yeah. And ringside maybe 100 or 120 or something like that, you know.
Yeah, it's very expensive for 2020. That's expensive for
a show.
$19.99.
Right, because those were like WWE show prices, maybe more actually. Maybe more. Yeah. Anyway,
so All right, so yeah, there was a ton of buzz. It was at the Reseda Country Club, which is a freaking historic building. It was immortalized in Boogie Nights just like a year
Right.
prior. So and like growing up in the Valley, like I'd always heard about, oh, Metallica's playing at the Reseda Country Club or Anthrax playing at the Reseda Country Club. Like all the cool bands like would come to the Reseda Country Club. And it was just jam packed. The crowd was hot. The crowd wanted to see the wrestling. I usually wrestled like I usually wrestled like one of the opening matches, but I think on that one it was like right before intermission because Webb and I had done a weapons match, and I always love working with Webb because he's so friggin' creative, man, and like he would just come with so many ideas. He had all these weapons like ready to go, like
Yeah, and
coffee makers.
And he was creative also as the editor. He doesn't get a lot of due for that because, I mean, that guy was the reason the show XPW television show and home videos looked as polished and creative and interesting and funny and all that as they were and slick. And so yeah, he was a smart guy. He was a smart guy.
And Rob loved him.
His gimmick,
like, he was like Rob's like little like henchman. Like Rob would always be like, "Hey Webb, get in here, listen to this."
Yeah. But Rob also knew what he had in Webb. He knew like, oh, this guy knows his shit, So yeah. And Webb was great because his gimmick was like, "What do you mean?" Like and so, but in reality, he wasn't like that at all.
It's smart and quiet and. Yeah. I don't have enough good things to say about Webb, man. He's just one of my favorite people to like work with over the years. And I was really happy that was the first XPW match or the first XPW show was me and Webb, and I feel like we had a good thing going, a good match, but. And this is unfortunately what led to my demise in XPW. Like it was like right off the bat, like it wasn't meant to be. I botched 2 spots in XPW, and they were bad botches. They were like I was known for like doing these big like high spots, these like moonsaults and stuff, and. On the very first show, I tried doing a handspring cartwheel moonsault, like like that Cronus used to do.
Yeah.
Onto the outside onto Webb, and like I was like taking tumbling and gymnastics and stuff in college, and like I could do that, no problem. But my foot, like I think got tripped up on the rope or something, and it knocked me down, and it was a huge botch. It was a whole, you fucked up chant. There was all that whole thing, and I had to go out and jump on Webb and like cover, and we continued with the match, and it was still a good match. It was still it was fun. There was like a lot of like just high spots. But it was just tainted by me screwing up that moonsault, and Rob was not happy with that. I mean, he didn't really like chew me out or anything, but and Dick came up after the show and was like, "Hey man, good job out there. You did really," Missy Hyatt came up to me, and she goes, "Hey, just so you know, like I thought you were the best wrestler on the show." And she walked away. I didn't even know who she was. And Webb turns to me and goes, "You know who that was?" And I was like, "No, who was that?" And Webb's like, "It's Missy Hyatt." And I was like, "What? That's Missy Hyatt?"
None of us knew.
Different.
None of us knew. We were blown away. Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem is I had this Mr. Perfect type gimmick. This Mr. Perfect, like the 3 guys I always emulated were Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Owen Hart, and Chris Benoit. And so I felt like the character I tried to like put together was chippy guy who's like really fucking good and solid, but just like had a real chip on his shoulder,
Yeah.
And
hence the name. You called yourself Phenomenal.
Exactly.
Right.
But I botching moves didn't work for that gimmick. Like you couldn't do that with that gimmick.
Right.
Even though, and this is me as a 42-year-old saying this. Me as a 20-year-old, I was like, well, if I'm going to get injured, let me do it in a ring. Just like Sabu broke his neck in the ring, and Pitbull 1 broke his neck in the ring, and so if I like break my leg or something, let me do it in the ring so that it's like it's a big dramatic event, which is like a stupid ass way to think. And I hope any young wrestlers that hear this don't think like that. Like, work it out in practice before you ever do it in the ring. So already like at the first match, I just felt like, damn it, I screwed up this one move. And for the next 9 months, I didn't have any screw ups up until January when I wrestled Carlito.
Okay, January 2000.
And yeah, so we had 2 matches. We had one at the Ventura Theater, and then we had one at the Palace. That was the first show at the Palace.
Yeah.
And at the Ventura Theater, there was a lot of space on both sides of the ring.
Yeah.
Where I could do a big friggin' moonsault out of the ring, no problem. And so what I did, I springboarded, or I jumped over the rope onto the apron. I springboarded to the top rope and did like a moonsault to the outside, which was like really friggin' impressive and hard to do. And I fucking nailed it, like an Olympic dive. It's like really hard to do.
That spot was used a lot on the home video and the TV intros. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I remember seeing it in the opening. And then so we were doing the exact same match at the Palace. Okay, like the next night. But the only problem with the Palace was there wasn't room for this moonsault. So I was like, okay, I can't do the springboard thing.
Yeah.
Let me do a split-legged moonsault, kind of like the way Rob Van Dam did. And the problem is I could never really hit that in practice. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go up and do it. And, it's going to happen. This is a stupid 20-year-old, thinking that. And they call it lawn darting, where so I swung my legs up onto the ropes and flipped back, but like my body went straight down like that. I went down on my head and hit the apron, and it was like, for some reason that part of the apron was the wood was like like the foam didn't go over the wood.
Oh,
so
man,
it was just like wood that I was hitting.
That's the hardest part of the ring, if that's what I think.
And this is the hardest part of Phenomenal Phil. So it was like this. It was like, but like echoed throughout the whole Palace. This like loud knock, of my skull hitting the wood of the apron. And thank God I was like bodybuilding and stuff at the time, because I could have very easily broken my neck. I had really bad whiplash. I was able to finish the match. I was okay. Like, Carlos was like, "Hey man, you okay?" And like, Pat came out. It's like, "Hey man, you okay?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm okay. I can finish the match." I was even like telling Carlos, I was like, hey, "Give me a neck breaker. Give me a pile driver." I was like, telling him to like do all these, things that would, look devastating on my neck. And then afterwards, I went to the back. I sat down, and like after like I was totally concussed. I was seeing stars. My eyes were like glassed over, and I had a lot of trouble like moving. I couldn't move my neck. I was like and it just like hurt really. It was like they call it a stinger. It was like a very bad stinger, and it was fucking dangerous, man. And like my dad was in a wheelchair. And if it would have been really stupid if I had ended up in a wheelchair. So it was kind of like a fucking traumatic thing, man. It was, and you know, a
You
couple
kind of
people asked me if I was okay, but
you
you know,
didn't really,
Rob never asked me if I was okay.
but you didn't really talk too much about that then. No,
And
because
then
I didn't really know any of. I mean, I remember when you talking about this. I do remember you getting hurt, but you know, I didn't remember this
yeah,
side of it, you know.
no, and I get it. And you know, I had great matches in XPW, and it's just it's a real shame that these two like botched moves like kind of like bookmark my time there.
Interesting.
Because I wrestled Mike Modest, I wrestled Donovan Morgan, I had great matches with Jimmy and Supreme.
Right.
I had this like
Carlito.
crazy, yeah, Carlito. I had this crazy three-way dance with I call it still three-way dance. I know they don't use that term anymore. With
Threat.
triple threat, whatever. Yeah, with Mike Modest and Chaos, we had this great three-way match. And Darren, like I can't even like I had two matches with Dynamite D, my hero, that were probably the best of my career. And in fact, the one that was in Ventura at Seaside Park, which like there was hardly anyone in the audience, it was probably the best match of my career. It was
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, opened the show, right?
It did open the show, yeah. Which that was usually I always liked opening the show because I was such a big fan of the cruiserweights, and I was like, you can really make a statement in that first match.
Yeah,
you could really set the tone for the night in that match.
Oh. People don't realize how important that is. Like the some of the boys that get it do, but like give props to the guys that like you said, just thanks for setting the tone for the night.
Yeah. So yeah, I always dug doing that. And it's speaking of like setting the tone, like I did like a bunch of media for XPW too.
Yeah.
Like, so first of all, I had a radio show on campus radio, like a wrestling talk show, just like Darren, and if, in fact, like one day Rob was like, "Oh, Phenomenal Phil's doing his radio show just like his hero, Dynamite D," and it was like Darren got like so embarrassed when he said that, and I got embarrassed too. I was like, "You prick! I fucking say that," Like, yeah, Darren is my fucking hero. So what? But yeah, I did local radio also. Like I did an appearance on this guy Spence up in Ventura. I done his show, promoting the Ventura theater shows. There was like a newspaper article written on me.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember you were like in the library doing your homework, and it was a picture of you.
Oh, hold on.
Here we go.
I went into the vault today, dude. I got all this crazy shit out of the.
Oh, that's great.
And my box of gimmicks. So here we go. Hold on. Student by day, wrestler by night, local, Phenomenal Phil. And yeah, it was hold on, there we go.
Cool.
Me and Donovan Morgan on the front page of the Santa Barbara News Press.
That's great.
And it was this, there's me in the library there,
I remember that. I had one of those, dude.
Yeah, film studies major at UCSB, and it's this whole fucking huge spread they did, and I thought it was going to be this little tiny, just BS, like small little story, and it ended up being this giant friggin' that's awesome. Thing on me, and like there's they had like this, because there's Rick, you can see Ric Flair and the guy was a huge the reporter was a huge wrestling fan, and this was like, it was like his pet project was doing that article on me. So and then like the local NBC affiliate like picked up on it, and they did a news story on me. Fucking the Telemundo came and did it. Galavision or whatever came and did a news story on me. And I did Jake Lawless. So Jake Lawless was at the time probably my best friend in XPW. Talk about just me and him, just an odd couple. But he was like, like 20. He's like 20 years older than me. Yeah, he came from the East Coast. He's like this party guy, this biker. and I'm this like college student, but I was like a hard drinking college student, you know, and we were like drinking buddies. Like after all these shows, and like I would come whenever I would come down, and you know, to train, I would always like go hang out with Jake afterwards. We would get like, you know, burgers, and like we would get like a 30-pack of beer, and like,
Taste.
you know, kill the whole thing in one night. Like, man, one of the porn girls came over one night, and we all like just kind of like hung out and drank, and yeah, I just, you know, I had good times with Jake, dude. He was just like he's a fun guy, and it sucks like we're kind of like not as close as we used to be, but yeah, he's my boy, man. He's
cool
my guy,
yeah.
dude.
I liked him a lot too. Like he was just one.
He loved telling me like, oh yeah, this is what you got to do, man. This is the problem with your generation. You guys don't even know how to put in a hard day's work. You know, he would always be like busting my fucking chops about shit. I brought him up to Santa Barbara. He did like my radio show. Yeah, he's a great guy, man. I love that dude. Are you gonna have him on?
Yeah, I already contacted him, so hopefully
he's got, dude. That dude's got stories for days.
Oh yeah,
he has a biker club, and he invited me to the biker club, and it's like, oh, it's just so cool, like fun people, like
oh wow,
it's wild, man. Yeah, talk to him about the biker bar that he's got. And my other really good friend was Big Rott. And he was he passed away about 2 years ago. And it's a real tragic story, like what happened to him. He's from.
By the way, thanks for bringing him up, because you know, we talk about Lester and D, but we have left a couple other guys out, and he should not ever be left out when we talk about these guys that have passed away.
What a wonderful human being he was.
Right.
And I mean, the guy was like a big brother to me. So he trained at the EWF too. He trained at the School of Hard Knocks. He lived in Vegas, and he was a bouncer out there. And he bounced at like, you know, all these cool nightclubs and like strip clubs and stuff. And you know, every weekend, like on, you know, we would train together, because him and his tag team partner Billy and Rico Constantino and Rico's little brother Dario, they would all carpool and come out from Vegas together. And so, you know, we all train together on weekends. And you know, I was like 18 when I first met him, and you know, I think I went to Vegas with my friends for like the first time, you know, by myself, and you know, without my parents. And Q like grabbed me, and he's like, Phil, you have to call me when you get into Vegas. And like, sure enough, I called him when I get to Vegas, and he's like, bro, come on over, have a drink. Like, come on over to the bar. Like, he would always get me into these clubs. I never had to wait in line. I never had to pay a cover charge. Like, he would get me into like these strip clubs. He'd get me into these like the Rum Jungle and like Rain and like all these, you know, all the coolest like nightclubs in Vegas. He would get me into. And he just like, he's a guy, like whenever I was in a locker room with him, I was always like, oh dude, like he's got my back. Like I don't have to worry about anything. Man. Like when he was at XPW, I was like, oh dude, I don't have to worry about shit, man.
Yeah. Dude, and he was a big dude, like in the locker room. He was just one of those guys, like a pogo, or like one of those where like, all right, yep, no one messes with this guy, you know. And if you're his boy, you're solid, dude. You know,
an amazing guy, great heart, and he had. I'm going to tell his story. It's a sad end to him, to what happened. He was bouncing at a club in Vegas, and he kicked somebody out, some junkie or something. I don't know, like some guy, some tweaker. And the guy came back with and hit him in the head with a hammer, and caused brain damage. He had a massive stroke, and he was in the hospital, and he was in physical rehabilitation for actually like a long time. And I went to go visit him. You know, I went out there for like Cauliflower Alley, and I knew he was out there, so I visited him, and you know, he was very, very happy that I visited him, and, you know, caught up with him, and I made it a point to like continue, you know, calling him and checking in on him. I told him the story about like my dad. Like, my dad had something very similar happen to him, and you know, he was his the big thing that was like motivating him was to get back in the ring. And he's like, Phil, I want to get back in the ring one day. I want you to be there. And I was like, I'll be there, dude. You know, and he was doing really hard physical rehab. He was just never the same. He couldn't really walk. He couldn't really talk. I mean, it was hard. His wife was taking care of him, and then his wife passed away. So he was like left all alone. I think he had like an uncle taking care of him. And he ended up having to like move down south with like family, because, you know, he was severely disabled. And yeah, he passed away just, you know, 2 years ago. And I had some stuff I wanted to talk to him about, man, and I just didn't have the opportunity, you know. And that's you know, it's just kind of like how it is.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, he was a good guy, man.
He was, man. He was just one of a kind. One of a kind. And speaking of also one of a kind guys, with initials as their name, here I've got my Dynamite D tribute armband. It was also in this vault. Like, the audience doesn't know. Like, I went into like my shed and dug up like a box of old like wrestling memorabilia. So that's why I've got all this crap here. Darren was my hero growing up. He ended up being like a peer of mine. You know, I ended up wrestling with him, and we ended up becoming friends, like really good friends afterwards. Like, I talked to him just, you know, a couple months before he passed away, and he was telling me about like, oh, I've got this like pain in my arm that's like not going away. And he was just a guy that he was the most normal person, not what you would expect from a you know, this radio host, this guy named Dynamite D, you know, this guy who was like the patriarch of Southern California wrestling. I expected him to look like Mr. Clean or something, like a big giant guy with like, you know, shaved head and tattoos. And I remember seeing him for the first time. He's just like skinny little guy, looked like Robin Hood with a long ponytail, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, he was just he was a great guy. I loved hanging out with him and talking with him about wrestling. I just loved
best.
And we would like commiserate about wrestling like all the time, and it was never. And I remember Adriana, Pat's wife, Joey's ex-girlfriend. It's another like one of those XPW like triangles. She called me like one night out of the blue in tears, and she's like, Darren's gone. And I'm like, what? And she's like, Darren is gone. And she's like in tears and hysterics. And I'm like, what? Like, what the hell happened? And, you know, she told me, you know, that he was in the hospital and he had, you know, these things going on with his like arm or something. And I didn't know. And this is one of my big regrets with leaving XPW, was that I had made all these great, I had all these great friendships that I feel like I kind of like blocked off after I left. And I didn't stay in touch with you guys as much as I should have. And I'm happy that I reconnected with the majority of you guys. And, you know, when I left XPW, So let me tell the story of how I left XPW. So after that match with Carlito, where I botched that moonsault and I almost broke my neck, Kevin calls me. He's like, "Oh, hey, Rob wants to talk to you. Can you come in here for a meeting?" So I was like, "All right, So I came into the office to meet with Rob and Kevin, and it was right before Baptized in Blood. So I knew that they wanted, they'd kind of wanted. They asked me if I wanted to do the death match, and I was like, "No, that's not my thing. I don't, I'm kind of like." Fucking nails and glass that wouldn't work with me, my style of wrestling. And so Rob sits me down with Kevin in his office and he goes, "After that last match, I said, that's it. I'm firing Phil." And I was like, "All right, well, and I was like, well, I don't want to be fired." And he goes, "But then Kevin talked me out of it, and we thought up of this gimmick for you. We want you to do the JT Smith gimmick." And I was like, "JT Smith, the guy from ECW?" And Rob's like, "Yeah, Kevin, tell him." And so Kevin proceeds to pitch me this gimmick where I would be doing these, as Kevin would say, I would be doing these big phenomenal moonsaults, but then I would fuck up like a leapfrog or something. Like I would fuck up moves. That's what JT Smith. Right. That was kind of like his gimmick for a minute in ECW, and I was like, that kind of doesn't make sense because I do all the fundamental stuff very well. It's just these big high risk moves that I had trouble hitting.
Right.
So I said, "Look, school has gotten way more difficult for me this year. And I was being pulled in two different directions with like school and with wrestling. And I wasn't able to wrestle as much. I wasn't getting as much ring time in. I was getting obviously rusty if I was like missing these moves. And I was like, I was probably going to need to take some time off like later this year, like towards the end of 2000. So I could finish college and, just be done with it. Why don't I take the time off now?" And Rob, complete 180, goes, "Well, now don't leave. You don't have to do that." And I was like, "No, I think it's a good idea for me to leave and, just finish school. And then that way I could kind of clear my head and get back to wrestling and focus on wrestling, because it's not fair. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. If I can't, get this ring time in and I'm botching moves, I just, and, there was like some personal reasons for me too. Like, I needed to grow up a little bit. I think I needed to do some maturing. And,
that was already mature that you even thought that.
Yeah, true. Like in many ways, I was more mature than my 20, but in other ways, I was like 20 going on 13.
Yeah, it's like the fact that you said that. It's like I need to go mature. Oh, the fact that I said that. Oh, okay, I'm mature then.
Yeah, exactly. So, also, wrestling had changed so much in just those couple of years, like 98, 99, 2000. Wrestling changed so much. It's because of the Monday Night Wars.
Right.
Like, remember, we went from having like 4 pay-per-views a year to having 12 pay-per-views times 2 companies. Plus ECW's having pay. Like, there was so much content. Right. There was 10 hours of programming every week between Raw, Nitro, and SmackDown and Thunder, and ECW. And I felt like, in the days of like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, they could build their storylines, you know? And then, by 99, 2000, like these stories were being churned out so fast and you couldn't, the quality control was like way down.
Yeah.
In WCW, like WWF was doing okay with like the Attitude Era stuff, But even they started, in 2000. They took a nosedive.
Yeah, because you're talking about like you said, the 4 pay-per-views. You build this intricate storyline of like one thing happened, then another thing happened, and then another promo, this, and then you build that for a couple months, and then now you fast forward to the era you're talking about, and you're right. Even in WWE, it was like a couple guys are in the back, they bump shoulders, up, there's a feud. It's like that's it.
Yeah, and thank God they had The Rock and Stone Cold to really, drive that product.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking hate that Vince bought WCW, man. That's like the one thing that just drives me fucking crazy. He bought WCW, closed it down, and then did the brand expansion like a year later. It's like, why didn't you just keep WCW going, man? Like, first of all, Eric Bischoff and his investors should have bought WCW. Incidentally, it's the 30-year anniversary this week of WrestleMania 7. It's the 22-year anniversary this week of the final Nitro.
Right. Wow. Okay. Yep. You're right.
And I thought, what happened to WCW at the end, it was just such a crime. Like, it was that whole last year was so horrible. It was so, like, the booking was so terrible. All that Vince Russo stuff was awful. Just the booking was so bad. And
can I tell you one thing? Like, speaking of all that, like, we grew up at a time in the 80s, of course, and then, okay, we're in it now, but we all came from that era. I remember talking to Billy Messiah. I think I talked to him about this, how we were in this like new extreme league, right? And it's like we're the faces of that league, but really every face in that league comes from that 80s era. We're really not that today wrestling that people are identifying us in this league. We grew up in that different time.
Way different. Like,
way different.
People are always like, oh, you think you're so much better, than you think you're too good for wrestling. It's like, I'm not. I'm the biggest wrestling fan there is. Like, I love, like, Macho Man Randy Savage is like my hero, and like I love the Hulk Hogan. Like, I like that era of wrestling. I love Kurt Hennig, Bret Hart. I love that era, but like it just evolved into something else. It's something. So when I came back to wrestling in 2001. Wrestling was just like completely different. Like, I couldn't even recognize it anymore.
Yeah, we were there at a time when it was changing. And that's kind of one thing I'll say for myself with being an XPW. I always one element of it for me that was exciting, and also in Wrestling Society X later, was this, not only this opportunity to be showcased on television, all this and that, but the fact that, like, oh, we get to be this alternative to the Big Brother company out there. Like, we get to be this, everyone's goal is pretty much is to shoot for WWE. But at the same time, there's something special to be in another league that's kind of competing against these things that you don't necessarily like that's happening in the wrestling world. And now you have this opportunity to kind of do something about it, say things, present yourself, whether it's the wrestling, the announcing, whatever. So I always, in a way, which kind of like upped my dedication to XPW a little bit. Like, not only are we've got to get behind this product that we're a part of, but we are also like representing something within the world of professional wrestling. And as fans, if we could see something in the other products that we don't like, oh my gosh, we have an opportunity here to actually counter that. So I always was like, almost like, and I've had people in WWE tell me, like, dude, when you guys are doing your shit, you guys are free to do whatever you want. You guys don't have somebody in your ear telling you what to say or this, that, and the other. Like, you're more free to express yourselves in your own thoughts, which today in wrestling is completely gone. But even then it was limited in the big three, or actually at that point, the big two, and then WCW left the big one. So that's what I think.
That's what I think is killing wrestling, man. I think it's the territory system's gone. These guys you know, yeah, there's some indie workers that kind of come up and, you know, like a Daniel Bryan or, you know, CM Punk, like these guys kind of come up and, you know, learn how to wrestle. But like you know, I love Ryan, obviously. I don't want to like knock the, you know, WWE Performance Center, but like they kind of like churn them out like robots, you know,
Cookie cutter.
Yeah, you do have to have that like experience of being in these shitty indie shows where like the crowd is yawning and you have to, you know, listen to the audience and be like, oh shit, like I got to change it up. And
it's no different than a comic that is like, let's say Eddie Murphy or Jerry Seinfeld, someone that made it so big, but before they made it to that big time, they had to go through all that shit in the clubs and getting chewed out and booed off the stage, all that. And you can't just create this star without all that. You can, but it's obviously going to be watered down, you know?
Yeah. You can't go to like stand-up comedy school and then get a Netflix special. Like,
right.
You can't do that. You know, it's like, you got to like work your way up. Yeah. And I think that when WCW went out of business and when ECW kind of closed down, then those venues for learning and like, you know, it closed up, and there was like this vacuum of like, you know, wrestlers, you know, can't really learn their craft, you know, as much, or they don't have as many, you know, avenues to become make a career out of it. So that's why, like, I'm always impressed with. I know Joey Ryan is like persona non grata right now, but it's always impressed with a guy like him who could like make a living, you know, wrestling and selling merchandise and promoting, and or like the Young Bucks, I guess, are probably a better comparison. You know, I'm always impressed with those guys who, you know, who can make it in this wrestling landscape because it's so damn hard, man.
Right. Very impressed. Right. With the fact that they don't need that corporate big brother entity to make it. They thought of it on their own. And in a way, like going back to just XPW, we were an indie league with the freedom to do whatever we wanted within an indie league, yet we were showcased because of, like you said in the beginning of the interview, all the advantages production-wise, the money behind it. We were showcased. Dude, we were on America One, and in LA it was the affiliate was KGLA, then KDOC, but we were on the time slot. It was like WWE at 10 p.m., XPW at 11 p.m., and then ECW at midnight.
Wow.
Like we were just like, dude, yeah. So we were showcased just as much as those television shows were, but we had the freedom. I remember Joey Styles, I had a conversation with him. It's like, yeah, dude, that's the only thing, man. Like, say what you want, but in XPW, dude, you were you. You were being you. And I said, no, you're exactly right, because I wasn't as locked down in Wrestling Society X that WWE is, but I was locked down enough to where I noticed, like, God damn, like, really, it's this. It wasn't scripted when I was calling the action, calling the moves, but everything in between was pretty much scripted, you know, to the point where it was like, you did appreciate XPW at that point a lot, that much more. I already appreciated it, but even that much more by having that in comparison, you know, with MTV and Viacom and all that stuff, just kind of watching you the whole time, you know?
Yeah. I got really like disenchanted with when, you know, wrestling started being like the whole match was scripted, you know, and I was like, that's not the kind of wrestling I like. I like the more improvisational, like see where it goes kind of wrestling. And, you know, Rob he wanted those matches. Like he choreographed one of my matches. He choreographed my match with Lester.
Right.
And that was the only match of mine that he choreographed. So I don't know if he did that for Lester's other matches, but I remember he worked on that match with me and Lester, and it was a good match. He choreographed a good match, but it just wasn't my band.
Right. So every match in Wrestling Society X was, of course, written out, choreographed, all that. But now one thing I remember about XPW is, like, I remember Kevin and Rob get in the office and all that, and they would write it out, certain matches, right? But these only were matches that were of drastic importance to a storyline, or that shifted a feud to somebody else, right? It just had to be done. But for the most part, all that in between, all those matches, it was like, dude, have a good match. Remember who's going over, have a good match, you know?
Yeah.
And then the guys would like, but that's why we all watch the WWE Network, man. That's why everybody goes to those old school things, because you have something there that's totally organic between those two combatants, that they are doing it. But if you see two people that are doing something and it's not their own thing, but someone else writing, subconsciously, we know, we can tell. We don't feel it. But when it's coming from them, coming out of them, whether it's predetermined or not, it's still coming out of them. And they're working together. It's a dance. And that's a beautiful thing with professional wrestling, that you're right. They just don't. Yes, of course it makes sense. It's going to be slicker. It's going to be easier. It's going to make sense. But they don't look
there
at
won't be botches, but you know, there's a lack of excitement that's sparked.
Do you want to go? Do you want to go to a comedy club where I know there's going to be no botches in this comedy? It's going to be perfect laughter every time. I don't want to see that. I want to see bombs. I want to see everything. You know, yeah. I like listening to a live album that you hear those little mistakes on the guitar. You know, you hear those. Yep. I don't want that to sound totally perfect. Otherwise, I'd listen to the studio album. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep. So anyway, you're right, man. That did change huge at that time.
It was huge. So from like 99 to 2001, it was like night and day. I was like, oh my God. So I left the door open to come back to XPW. I made sure, like in that meeting that I had with Rob, like, you know, hey, is it okay if I come back? You know, is the door still going to be open to me? He's like, yes, it'll 100% will be. You know, you're welcome back. And I just I don't know. I never had this compulsion to come back. You know, I mean, I went to Baptized in Blood, and I watched. I was actually sitting right behind you at Baptized in Blood. Up on you were up in the balcony, right?
Yeah, at the Palace.
Yeah, at the Palace. Yeah.
And
bro, I remember that Shane Douglas promo vividly. So yeah, like I left it. There was no like bad blood or anything with me and XPW. You know, like, you know, I went to Baptized in Blood, watched that. You know, I went to the Ventura Theater a couple months later to watch XPW 2.0. You know, like I was part of XPW 1.0, then Baptized in Blood happens, and it's like XPW 2.0. Like there's Sabu, the Messiah's like the #1 star. Like Tracy Smothers and Axel Rotten were there, and it was different. It was a lot different when within a couple months it changed a lot. And I think you guys got on TV, like all this shit happened right as I left. You guys got on TV, you guys started running at the sports arena, which that devastated me, not wrestling at the sports arena. Like when I heard you guys were like, I was talking with Jake and he's like, oh yeah, we're at the sports arena now. I was like, oh, the sports arena. What?
You mean like the LA sports arena?
Yeah, that hurt. Like not being at the sports arena fucking hurt. Like, it sucked not being at the Olympic, but the sports arena, that was like, oh no, God, if I could have just stayed, should have just done the goddamn JT Smith gimmick. Fuck, I should have just made it work. So that's like, it's like one of my big regrets. I hate having regrets, and unfortunately, my life is full of them. But I fucking regret not making wrestling work, like not making XPW work out. And you know, even if I fucking stayed in college an extra year, who cares? You know, like I was trying to get out in 4 years, and it's like,
did, right?
I did. And, you know, that last year I was fucking depressed because I wasn't wrestling. Like I missed wrestling so much.
Wow.
And, but I think it's more like a nostalgia thing. Like I missed wrestling the way it was, you know, not the way it is.
It's crazy. It's crazy when it's crazy when you talk about college. Like I remember like when you're in your 20s and you're like I can't. I got to finish college. I can't. And I remember like when I had to go back to college after taking some time in New York and all that with wrestling. I remember then I got my real estate license, so I was doing stuff with that. But so I just had time away, and I'm like I didn't almost want to go back to school because it was too late. And then I graduated from college when I was 28 or 29 years old. And then at the time, like, gosh, that's so old. But now you look back on it, it's like, who cares what age you?
Oh, dude, I like,
Yeah.
Tim and Jake were constantly like, bro, just drop out of college, man. You could always go back to college later.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding? Drop out of college. That's crazy.
That's the mindset. Yeah.
And,
but now you look back on it, it's like I thought I was
fuck. I could have finished college anytime. Like XPW, that was like once in a lifetime.
You know, it was, but in a way, you made the responsible decision in some ways. So I mean,
yeah, I mean, I've got a career in TV now, so
there you go.
It took a while. It took like a good 10 years to, you know, I was like substitute teaching for a while. Like I thought for a while, like in my 20s, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna be a substitute teacher for the rest of my life. And then, you know, I got very lucky, and you know, I've made like this niche career for myself as a you know, reality TV producer, and I'm like a talent producer. I'm like this like weird talent guru. You know, I interview people. I do this all day long. I interview people on Skype and Zoom all day long.
How come you didn't wrestle that much outside of XPW after that all happened?
Well, first of all, I took. So I stopped wrestling in February of 2000, and I didn't start back wrestling until July of 2001.
Okay.
And I think I had one UPW light match, which I wrestled Bad Boy Basil, another XPW alumni. As unfortunate story with Basil. He was had some drug issues, as a lot of guys did. Too many.
Yeah.
Way too many. I'm very thankful that I fucking steered clear from that. No steroids,
I have to thank my lucky stars too. I was pretty darn innocent in those days, and I think a lot of the guys knew that about me. So if they did their stuff, like I remember they would kind of like do it away from me and all that. So I am thankful for that. And
one of the things
ready to experiment with that stuff then, and I'm so glad that I did not, man. So I'm lucky.
I read one of the things that got me out of wrestling was I read the Dynamite Kid's autobiography, and you want to read a cautionary wrestling tale, read that guy's book, because he just got destroyed and chewed up and spit out by wrestling. And I mean, he was not a good guy to begin with, but right. It scared the hell out of me, and I was like, I can't go down this path. Like, and I knew how competitive I was, that I was like, dude, I'll eventually start juicing. And, you know, once you start juicing, then you got to take like painkiller. It's this thing that snowballs, like where guys have to take like uppers to like be like alert during the day. Then they take downers at night to sleep. And it's this, you know, in the 2000s, we saw this like horrible pandemic, beginning with Louis Spicoli, of guys just fucking dropping dead from, and then you hear about all the drugs they were taking. It's like, you were taking how many somas? Like, I take one soma and I'm like loopy, and like these guys were taking like dozens. So, all right, to answer your question, why didn't I wrestle too much? Because I graduated college, I moved back to LA. I wrestled for the EWF a little bit, and mainly I wrestled for MPW, Millennium Pro Wrestling, which that kind of like how the UIWA came from the ashes of IWF, MPW came from the ashes of both of those.
Right.
And you know, Paul Venemilia, he still, you know, kind of runs MPW to this day.
Barry Cohen?
Yeah. Barry Cohen, yeah. So I feuded with Barry Cohen a little bit. Hit him over the head with a giant dreidel.
You guys used to do shows at the Jewish Community Center in West Hills.
Yeah.
I remember there was one spot, I always loved it, with the like who, I forget the wrestler, but like the Jewish wrestler came in and like the priest started talking to him like, this is, this, that, and the Bible here, and the little Jewish kid's like, oh, and then the rabbis come in and say, no. like to stay away from the cross. It's the star. And then they had to call the cross up. No. The Star David. Yeah. It's just great, man.
Yeah, it was silly. And
what I love about wrestling, just that stuff, dude.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of wrestling is like there's the serious side and the comedy side, and like
right,
balancing the two is very, very difficult. I tried to take it like very seriously, like when I was doing Phenomenal Phil,
right?
Because I was like, take it seriously, like Austin, like Benoit, like going like a buzzsaw, like you're fucking, and then like later, like doing the McPhenom stuff, I kind of like embraced more the comedy side of wrestling, and it's I still think doing wrestling serious is the way to go. That's the way to if you take it serious, the crowd's gonna take it serious.
I don't want to say prided myself, but I always focused on balancing those two out on the commentary. And I felt like that's one of those things that you either get or you don't get, and you almost can't be taught that, to where like, the tongue-in-cheek comedy aspect of wrestling while taking it seriously and infusing those two together. Like you can't go total comedy, you can't go total serious, especially when you're calling a match. But if you can infuse those together, and I felt like I was very focused on doing that, and when to pull back on one or the other to put the other in. And the master of doing that. That's well, whatever. But thank you. But that is just what I always loved, which drew me in as a kid to this business. Like I just remember, speaking of the sports arena, as a kid, we'd go to wrestling, but we'd also go to Laker games at the Forum. And I remember one show where I was sitting looking at the people, realizing like, holy crap, this world of wrestling has the same amount of people as the Laker game, and everyone's looking at this entity like we're looking at a real sport. Yet it's that tongue-in-cheek at the same time. And I just was fascinated at a young age by all that, already being a fan of wrestling, but just noticing that part of it. And that's why, like in high school, everyone, when you go to high school, elementary, junior high kids are still in wrestling. And then in high school, we lose interest. And I was the kid that even gained more interest in wrestling through high school, when everyone else was dropping out of it. And so, yeah, wrestling is that animal, that entity that you can't explain it if you don't get it. And no explanation will do if you don't get it. And no explanation is necessary if you do get it.
Bro, I'm going to tell you something. It's, first of all, I think it's an art form. Yeah. I've got the crazy idea. It should be in the Olympics, and not like, for winning, like who's going to win or who's going to lose. If they can do like rhythmic gymnastics and synchronized swimming and figure skating, they could fucking do pro wrestling, because there's nothing better than a fucking well-executed pro wrestling match. Sure. And like Dave Meltzer, every week he's like, oh, this was a 5-star match. This was a 4-star match. Why can't you have a bunch of experts like judges?
You can never
fucking hold up. Yeah.
None. Okay. I get what you're saying. And I think that's a great idea. I'm going to be devil's advocate. First off, let's forget about the Olympic Committee. Of course, they frown on it.
They would never do it. But yeah.
But coming from the wrestling industry, if that were to happen, that would completely change the game of pro wrestling, because it's now no longer presented as a show. Because you're talking, it wouldn't be like me, the announcer, announcing a regular wrestling match. It'd be like the judges talking about how the promoter, how we kayfabed it, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, judge that. The business would be done, exposed. So, hey, Who knows though? Maybe the way the internet is going today, how so much of it is being exposed, maybe 10, 20 years from now, it'll be so exposed that we can do an event like that at the Olympics where we talk about it the way we're talking about it right now. But then we no longer it would no longer be presented as that. Oh, by the way, folks, this is a real sport that we're saying that it is, you know.
Kris, when that happens in 30 years, just remember you heard it from Phenomenal Phil first.
We
Okay?
documented
This was conversation 0. Okay.
We documented it. This is going nowhere. So yeah, you see the date where this video is posted, folks. This is it.
Phenomenal Phil called it in 2021.
Right.
The 2050 Olympics.
Let me Phil, that's awesome, man. I don't, you know what? I think I've heard that once before, and I think it was you that brought that up to me, like at Neil's or something. But let me fast forward a little bit, Phil, and talk about so XPW hits, you know, you talked about the sports arena being on television, and I feel for you too, because you were very liked off camera, behind the curtain. You were very appreciated by everybody in the back. And I remember, now that you mentioned that, in Hollywood, when you were behind me out there, I was at the broadcast booth, and I remember like you saying, I was saying like, dude, when are you going to wrestle? And you were kind of kayfabing like, well, you know, we'll see what happens, man. There's a lot of shit going on. I remember all that now. It's come back to me. But so then we fast forward. So XPW TV, all that, and then it defunct in 2003. Some stuff was happening. Kevin did his whole thing with wrestling. Well, we all did with Wrestling Society X. And
hey, hold on. I've got a question. Because this is kind of like, so I know they got raided, and you know Rob and Janet both ended up going to prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about Tom? What happened to Tom? Did he?
I can't.
We're not supposed to talk about this? Or?
No. I just asked if he knew. My producer knew, but I can't remember, bro. I can't. I don't think so. I don't want. I want to say.
Did he leave Xtreme Associates?
Well, he was there right up to the end, because actually I remember when Webb left right before the end. Tom took over the TV show editing, you know, and all that, and he did all right job, but it wasn't. You know, Webb had all that 4-year experience doing the TV, but what you call
did Webb have a falling out with Rob?
Yeah, he and Rob had a falling out, and I remember I wasn't there when it happened, but I think I came in that night, and then you know Rob's like, "Yeah, fuck him, all that," and I was, "Oh, what happened?" And wow. Kevin off to the side was like, "He's gone, man. He's gone. Just it's done." You know. Oh, okay. Damn. You know, there goes the TV show. I remember thinking, but that was the writing on the wall. The first sentence of that writing that was on the wall. So yeah, I came there that night when the feds had already raided the place, you know, and then I see the actual paper with Rob Zakari's signature and John Ashcroft's signature. Like,
dude, what was Rob thinking, man? What like
that was the
like, oh my god, it's kind of narcissism, man. Like don't challenge the federal government, dude. Especially when you're running like a shady porn company, man.
Nobody beats the federal government, man. The mafia.
No, they're undefeated.
No corporation, nothing, dude. No country, like, right? But but anyway, so that was, you know, a bitter ending kind of for everybody. Bitter ending for everybody, because it was, you know,
he called me. Well, he didn't call me. He had Kevin call me to come back to XPW.
What year?
They wanted 2001 or 2 maybe. Whenever there was like a SoCal wrestling invasion.
Yeah, the SoCal Jobbers Union.
And he wanted me to like lead that. He was like, "You're the perfect guy to lead this SoCal wrestling invasion." Like, you know, and it was like, "So I heard you're back wrestling. Like, do you want to come back to XPW?" And I was like, just, you know, like I'm not, you know, like I was like trying to be an actor and stuff. I was like, I just can't go back to XPW. It's just not. It's in my rear view, and it was stupid. Like XPW is like my fondest memories of wrestling, and I first of all I should never have left, and secondly I should have come back. Like I said I was going to come back, and I didn't. And they had a perfect opportunity for me to come back. Like, And
And
I
that was,
was,
and
dude,
those
I
were
was doing my best wrestling in that 2001, 2002. Dude, it was like hit. I
yeah.
was firing on all cylinders.
And you were good in '99, bro. I'm not just saying that. You were good in '99 and all that. So, but
Thank you.
dude, it's like
It was the gimmick. A lot. I think like
no, no,
I presented that Mr. Perfect gimmick, and people kind of like bought
you were
into it.
good because
All right,
you
thank
hung
you.
with Carlito, you hung with Dynamite. Like, dude, nah, man, it was
But
those are good.
yeah, I did hardcore, with Lester and Jimmy, and I mean, yeah, I did technical wrestling. Like, here's what was really cool is like Mike Modest was one of my heroes, and and he was a friend of mine too, and Donovan Morgan was a friend of mine, and like I got really chummy with those guys because it was like we were the three like technical wrestlers, like in XPW. And I'll tell you another thing. So in '99, like I like everyone else, I had my fucking ideas of what Rob should have done, and
Mhm.
everyone's a fucking armchair quarterback. But one of the things that I was 100% right on, I thought the storylines were like kind of lacking. They ended up getting better in XPW. Like when I ended up watching the TV series, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Mhm.
I was like, Rob, I know the best indie wrestler in the country. He's the most respected indie wrestler. He's a friend of mine. He like trained me, and I'm talking about Chris Daniels, of course. And I was like, dude, you have to bring in Christopher Daniels, and you should make him your head booker. Like, if you made him your head booker, you would get, first of all, the best wrestling out of everybody,
Yeah.
the best storylines out of everybody, and you would get it would legitimize XPW immediately. Everybody from all over the country, every wrestler would want to wrestle for Chris Daniels,
Right.
and Rob was like, nah, I don't need that. I'm the booker, like he was like, phenomenal Phil, what the fuck do you know? And we brought Chris Daniels in. Do you remember this? We brought him in for one show,
Yep.
and I remember I was like, Chris, dude, I'm so glad you're here. You gotta be the guy. Like Rob needs to hire you. And like Chris wasn't like gonna be, he didn't want to be exclusive, and like he was a gigging wrestler. Like he went around everywhere, and wrestled everywhere. And it didn't work out, which like really sucked. It's like I really thought that if he got Christopher Daniels on board,
And
dude,
and and
would
Messiah
have been
actually
no stopping him.
Messiah Billy on the show, he actually gave him a lot of props. Like, no, man, that was the original Messiah.
Chris Daniels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that Billy's gimmick
Yeah.
was definitely, you could
Yeah.
see, was very. And I want to talk about Billy for a sec, man. Like when I left XPW, he was like the rising star, and then when I came back and I went to the Ventura Theater a couple months later, he was without question the top star in the company. He was more over than fucking anybody, than anybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, Billy is onto something, and Rob is honest. And I pitched an idea. Like, I wanted to change my gimmick like way early on in XPW. I wanted to like wear like I wanted to go gothic, and like a little bit more like heavy metal, like Marilyn Manson,
Yeah.
like wear a black leather trench coat and like the sunglasses, and I had it like an expandable baton, like one of those police batons,
Oh,
and I
cool.
wanted to use that and like beat the shit out of people with with this expandable baton. And I pitched it to Rob, and just it's all it was just like changing my look a little bit, and just like having just more of an edge, and less clean cut, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, so you want to be Sting?" And I was like, "What? Wait a minute. No, I don't want to be like." He's like, "Yeah, you want to wear a black trench coat and beat the fuck out of people in the rafters with a baseball bat." And I was like, "Wait a minute. This is a big leap here." And I was too young to like really like like I said, too like not I wasn't mature enough to like continue pitching the idea and be persistent with it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, it
that
was
was
more
all
like, it was probably more like the Brood that I was trying to do,
okay.
you know?
Got it.
And I felt like it would have fit in XPW a little bit better. And it would have fit with like what the Messiah was doing, you know, and it would have, and this is before the Messiah. This was like, it was before the Lunatic. This was like very early on.
Yeah.
It's funny. I ended up, you know, when I was wrestling in MPW, Billy shows up all of a sudden, and I'm like, Billy, what are you doing in MPW? Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not wrestling for XPW anymore. I had a falling out with Rob. And then, like, you know, a couple months later, someone comes up to me at a show and goes, oh, hey man, did you hear about Billy?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And someone told me, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm definitely not coming back now, man.
You're right. Yeah, that
so
was
you know, I mean, you know,
crazy time.
You don't become the most hated man in porn without breaking some eggs, I guess. without some garden shears. I don't know.
What did you think of, like, when you? Well, I want to get into actually your
I'm 100% on Billy's side, by the way. Like,
okay,
I'm Team Billy.
Yeah, man, and we were talking. He was candid on this show too. Like, he opened up, and I was like, yeah, whatever you want to talk about. But no, it was nice that he kind of.
He's a saint. Like, he's like, oh, it's water under the bridge. I'm like, wow, you are the bigger man for sure.
Bro, I really felt that same way, man. Talking to him, like, dude, he was so like, no, man, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have met my wife, and then this stuff wouldn't happen. Like, wow, like, that's pretty cool. Really,
no, he's an inspiring guy, man. Like, I'm horrified by what happened.
Right.
Allegedly, I mean, who knows, you know, what the hell happened. But I'm proud of him, man, and I'm proud of the person that he is. I'm proud of the person he's become, and
really nice chat.
It's just an inspiring guy, man.
Right. So Phil, you know, you kind of surprised everybody in 2008 when you came back to XPW. When XPW first off XPW came back, and then you came back to XPW, but we did not see Phenomenal Phil. And out of nowhere, man, dude, I got to tell you, man, that was brilliant stuff when you were Mr. McPhenom, the leader of the WE, the Wrestling Empire, and your whole thing was your
not women, not to be confused with Women's Entertainment.
Right. Yeah. The WE network.
That was the play.
Yeah. But it worked because the logo was WE, and then
it was perfect.
And then you were coming to Cold Day in Hell because Big Vision Entertainment was a huge video distribution company that worked with, you know, Sci-Fi Network and all this, MTV, Viacom, and they were going to start producing XPW because this was just off the heels of losing Wrestling Society X, so they still owned XPW. So they were gonna launch XPW again, not as a weekly show, but like a monthly or bi-monthly pay-per-view deal. And so we did have the first show to launch that. Unfortunately, that was in 2008, and the big crash happened. So really, the crash was the reason why nobody ever saw that continuation of XPW. Kind of like how TNA, when they first started, they were like pay-per-views at first. But we did have that one big show. The fan interest was off the charts still, which was great to see.
That was a great show.
Yeah,
that was Cold Day in Hell was awesome.
It was a very good show, and you came in there as kind of like the spokesman, almost like the mascot for that show. Like you were delivering these promos leading up to it, and then on the home video, you see it in the beginning, the Wrestling Empire, and you did this whole Vince McMahon great impersonation with the gray hair and everything, and talking about how dare XPW reign in on the Wrestling Empire. I bought WCW, I bought ECW, and I'm going to buy XPW. and so it was like, it actually, to me, when we were relaunching XPW, you added that element to it to be like, it showed XPW as like, okay, it's not just another show that's going to bring back wrestling on a generic level. Like, whoa, they got like some entertainment value to this too, which was where you came in. It's like it like, whoa, it made the company and the show itself kind of seem that much more important. And like, it seems like a competitive wrestling thing that they're doing that, not just matches, and you were part of that. And you talk about that, like the genesis of the Mr. McPhenom character and how that was and how you felt doing all that at Cold Day in Hell, and you were at XPW 10
Yep.
in Hollywood.
Yep. And I did Mex Pro also.
And Mex Pro.
So, yeah. So, all right. When I was wrestling in XPW, remember XPW 1.0, Rob was still kind of like figuring it out. And I was kind of soured on like the lack of storylines. And I was always like, Rob, you in order to like have fans coming to these shows, you have to have like every wrestler needs to have some storyline.
Right.
Every match needs to have some angle to it. Like there needs to be heat, like there needs to be like feuds going on. Like me and Webb, that would have been a natural feud. We should have like kept feuding, or me and Jimmy would have been a great feud.
Yeah.
Me and Modest would have been a great feud. Me and Chaos. And he was like, I don't need, just the main event needs to be, we just need stories for the main event matches, not you jadruls or, you drizzling shit wrestlers. So when I left XPW, I was like, man, there's no fucking storylines there. There's like nothing going on, and I didn't watch the TV show. And then I reconnected, like in, I don't know, 2005, 2006 with like Kevin and everyone. And like, it was great. It was kind of like a homecoming, like, reconnected with you, with Danny, with Pat. We did GXW. And incidentally, did you see were you there when there was the car accident? Okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about that another day.
Yeah. Day.
So I reconnected with everyone, and Kevin was like, "Dude, well, you live in Sherman Oaks. Come to the Big Vision offices. We're right on Van Nuys Boulevard." So he invited me to the Big Vision offices, and like, I reconnected with you and Webb and everyone. And Kevin had given me the seasons of XPW TV, and I'd never watched them. So I took him home and I watched them. And I was like, not expecting much. And I was like, wait a minute, these little skits are really brilliant. Like I could tell like Ryan, probably a guy like Ryan Katz was probably you could tell like him and like Webb, like there was a lot of like their ideas, in the skits.
Well, Ryan wasn't there in the early days though. So those early XPW TVs, those were like, that's a lot of Kevin's brainchild right there. I'd say Kevin and Rob or Kevin and Webb too. But of course, Kevin.
I was like, okay, this is what I would expect a pornographer to, the kind of wrestling I would expect a pornographer to make. Like these little like skits, these little vignettes. I was like, okay, now I'm getting XPW. So it took like, 5 or 6 years for me to like really to wrap my head around it and be like, oh, now I get it. Okay. It's just like silly, kind of like tongue in cheek, fun thing, And so, all right, Kris, you did a Vince McMahon impression. You probably don't remember it. I think it was on the Baptized in Blood video. You remember when Damian Dallas threw up?
Oh, like, that
match.
He's gonna puke.
Yeah, and you did the Vince McMahon. He's gonna puke. Right. And you're just a clown in general. Like that's why I always love hanging out with you because you're always like silly and irreverent, and like you'd be like, "Oh, hello, Vince McMahon," And so when Kevin asked, like, I had this character in a GXW that I was going to call Mr. McPhenom, and it was just me doing a Vince McMahon impression, but it was me doing an impression of you doing a Vince McMahon impression. So my Mr. McPhenom is really Kris Kloss doing a Vince McMahon impression.
Jeez. Who would have thought?
I know it's very meta. So Kevin asks me to do Cold Day in Hell, and he's like, "Oh, we want Phenomenal Phil to be in the, old fart battle royal, or whatever. There's always an old fart battle royal, like with all the kind of like random like has been guys, and I was like still in my 20s, and I was like, I'm not a has, but I can't be. I don't want to do this fucking battle royal thing. So I kind of like went to the acting well and like kind of like got creative with it, and I was like, let me do Mr. McPhenom. Is like Vince bought WCW and ECW. Why the fuck wouldn't he buy XPW? And I could call it the WE instead of WWE. So I had just done a play where I had dyed my hair gray and like drew like wrinkles on my face. So I did the exact same thing and dressed like Vince McMahon with the slacks and the open shirt and the sports coat. And I just filmed in my bedroom. I just put up a camera in front of a white wall.
Right.
And I did this like this. I just recorded myself doing a Vince McMahon impression and being like, I'm going to buy XPW. And because it was called Cold Day in Hell, it's like, oh, it's a perfect Vince McMahon line. It's going to be a cold day in hell.
And then Hartsfield.
Hartsfield loved it. And Kevin, like I gave it to Kevin. I was like, hey dude, I made this. If you wanna, if you want to do something with it, great. Like, if not, I'll still do the battle royal. It's fine. And he loved it. He was like, oh my God, we got to do a whole match about this, or we got to do a whole like series of vignettes for this. And like, we got to have you do a much bigger role at Cold Day in Hell. And I was like, sweet. Like, not non-wrestling, fucking sign me up, man.
Awesome,
like,
man.
That's what I'd wanted to do was like manage, So and he put me with like CW Anderson, and Mikey Whipwreck was supposed to be part of our little ex ECW contingent, but he no-showed, and so it was just me and CW Anderson, and like they rented like a limo for us, and like it was just so silly. And we did the match. It was with like X-Pac, and like X-Pac did the fucking Bronco Buster on me, and like it was just a fun night, man.
Right.
And I loved it. I love Cold Day in Hell so much, man. Cause like I had told you previously, I never met Ryan Katz, and I never met Angel. I never met I think I met Crack. I'm not sure, but like I Gary Key. I knew Gary Key from before,
right?
But I didn't know he had been in XPW.
Okay,
so I was like, oh my God, man! Like there's this whole like other crop of XPW guys that I didn't know about. And another thing, and I Lester is my guy. Like he is my like. I have such a soft spot in my heart for Lester. He loved my T-shirt. The if I can pull it out, the "Who Do I Think I Am" T-shirt. He always loved it, and he was like, man, I love that shirt. This shirt, man, that's like such a good heel thing to say. Like I was like, oh, thanks, man. I got the idea from Chris Daniels, but it's okay. And then so I watch Cold Day in Hell, and I go out to watch the main event. With him and Necro Butcher. Yeah. And I couldn't believe the response that he got, because he, from 2000 to 2008, his notoriety grew by leaps and bounds.
Leaps and bounds, yeah.
Yeah. And so he goes and he's like, who do I think I who am I? Who do I think I am? Who am I? Yeah. And it was like this call and response. The fans were like, Supreme. And I was like, oh, like he made it work. Like he fucking took it to the next level. Wow. And I was like, oh, fuck, man, awesome. Like I was like so happy. Like I was like elated. I was like, yes, that shirt that got fucking lost by Rob Black a million years ago is now like living on through Lester. So, all right, Cold Day in Hell was awesome. I McPhenom was like, I thought it was just gonna be like a one-time thing, and then a year later we get called for XPWX, and I was like, okay. And Kevin asked me, do you want to wrestle on the show? And I was like, I don't want to wrestle, man. He's like, oh, no. It's just going to be a comedy match. It's just going to be a real easy comedy match. You don't have to do much. And I was like, I'm not really in wrestling shape. He's like, you're going to do it with GQ money. And I was like, fine, say no more. Like I'll with Ryan, I'll wrestle with Ryan for sure. So I worked with Ryan on like putting this match together, and we had a great match. We had a great match planned. Mm-hmm. And it was just like silly. Like there was a Bret Hart impersonator that came out, like his buddy Dan Magnus. But like, again, it was like a typical Phenomenal Phil thing. I tried to do too much. I wasn't like in wrestling shape. I sprained my ankle like right off the bat in the match, and we had to do kind of like an abbreviated version of the match. And it was still fun and like silly, but it was more like it was more comedy than serious,
Yeah.
And
well, I remember you were wearing those dress shoes, like suit shoes. And I remember watching you like, dude, that's dangerous, slipping. And sure enough, you were dressed in the McPhenom suit and tie, and you were wearing dress shoes.
Well, no, in the match, I had my wrestling boots on, and okay. I dressed like the way Vince McMahon used to. Remember when he used to come out and wrestle? He would have like black jeans and like a black wife beater on.
That's right. Yeah.
Do that walk.
That's right. I remember you did that. Yeah, that's right.
So that's the that was that was my like Vince McMahon like alt outfit.
I'm thinking Cold Day in Hell when you got in the ring and I remember seeing you slip around in your dress shoes, thinking like, you better be careful. Yep. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. It was and so it was kind of a bummer. Like I wish I was able to do more in the match. I slipped because we had like a spot where like I threw like the powder in his eyes, and then I ended up slipping in the powder. It was just a debacle, and it's like this is why I can't be wrestling anymore. Like you have, like I've got a very high respect for wrestling, and you need to be in wrestling shape.
Yeah,
you need to constantly be training. You got to be on top of your game. You can't just do a match every couple of years. You just can't do it.
Right. It's like anything. It's like any sport, really. Well, Phil, that was the last thing I was going to ask you about, and record time here, man. We're hovering almost to the 3-hour mark. Right. So I knew this was going to be good. I knew this was going to.
Feel free to edit it, dude. Feel free to.
No. I knew that we were going to have this because, you've shed a lot of light on a lot of things I didn't know too. So I mean, the fans are, I know, going to be grateful for this. And but man, dude, great connecting with you here.
Dude, love it, bro. Love you, man.
Love you too.
Anytime, dude. Anytime, dude.
And we stay in touch, so we'll be talking soon. We at least been texting through this pandemic and all that. But
you've got a new theme song.
We're gonna play that. Yeah, courtesy of Mr. McPhenom. So now that you say that, we're gonna have to play that on this. But nonetheless, dude, is there any parting words or anything you want to say or plug or tributes to anybody? We talking about the fallen heroes already a little bit, but before we sign off.
Q, I want to definitely recognize Q and D.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding us about that, because we lost so many. It's hard to include everybody, but when we started,
and, the original Mr. XPW, Christian Blood, our friend Byron, was a great guy, and he was taken too soon.
That guy was a talent, man.
Extremely talented,
dude. That guy was good. He was good, man. And he didn't, he was only there in the very beginning, but I remember when he left, it was like, what, dude, you're not going to have him on board? Or I forget why he left, but he was a damn good talent. Christian Blood.
Yeah, he was. Respect to, Big Dick, Pitbull 2, Public Enemy, both of them. Chris Candido, Cronus. Yeah. Whoever else I'm forgetting, Doc Marley, Basil. Yeah. It's crazy that there's that many people that are gone. But Nicole Bass, I loved her.
Yeah.
She was cool.
Yeah, she was, man.
Yeah, so just wanted to keep their memories alive because they were really wonderful people. Bro, thank you so much for having me, man. Oh, plugs. Look, the company I work for is a TV company. It's a TV production company called 495 Productions. And we're the company that does Jersey Shore. We do Floribama Shore. We do Double Shot at Love. We do Martha and Snoop's Potluck Dinner Party. We do Blue Collar Millionaires. We got do shows going on constantly. So please watch the Jersey Shore shows.
You went from one entity, one industry that showcases something on television that's not real but tells the fans it is real, to another industry that tells the fans it is real but it's not real in reality television. No,
yeah, and if I hadn't done wrestling, I would not have the career I have today.
I know.
I'll tell you that for sure.
I have a story about when I was working at MTV. I never brought this up, but it goes with what you're saying. And I got there early at the studios in Burbank to do some stuff with voiceover. And the editor one of the edit bays, he was finishing up doing the Real World, MTV Real World. And it was like cutting room floor. You could probably tell me all about this, but it was like cutting room floor. The camera was just on. They were between cuts. And then the producer, I was watching on the monitor, he goes, "Okay, now remember, Jill, when you grab this coffee pot, you just asked him if it was hot and he said no, but you're going to grab it. It's going to be hot. So I want you to react." And I remember I went to the guy. I'm like, "What? You mean this isn't, I was dumbfounded, and he just hits pause and he looks at me kind of like Webwood, like, "What do you think?" and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but it's like," he goes, "Let me ask you something. Is there a law that says this has to be real?" "No, there's not. It's all about ratings. If you interest them, we get ratings, we get advertisers. The end." "Okay, let me get into." And he goes back to it. And I was like, that was back in 2007 when no one really knew that was kayfabe right there, about reality TV. So I just remember having that early education. Oh, it's just like wrestling,
Yeah, it's funny. I work with one of my bosses he was an executive at MTV for Wrestling Society X.
Oh, wow.
He was the guy that greenlit it. And
no way.
Yeah, Drew Tappan. Yeah,
I remember Drew. What a small world.
Drew's. World. I work with Drew every day.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Wonderful.
Phil, dude, hey man, thank you so much. Really cool hearing all your insight, all your stories, and would love to have you on again. And
anytime.
Really great catching up.
We should do a roundtable one day. We're a bunch of
actually the higher ups here at the Wrestling Chatter have been kind of dibble dabbling in those ideas at least. So we'll see what that all unfolds to. And fans, thank you so much. Any comments, questions? Drop them down here on the bottom of the video for Phil. Do you want to put your Facebook or anything like that, Phil? Or your Instagram?
Phil.Lander on Instagram, Phil Lander on the Twitter. I'm an amazing follow. I'm fucking hysterical. Just follow me.
All right. And then fans, for those of you that are hitting me up on my messenger, thank you so much. I will get back to you on Kris Kloss on Facebook. And then of course the Wrestling Chatter channel. Please, if you haven't done so, what are you waiting for? Turn the red into gray, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe already. I'm tired of ads.
Waiting for?
Subscribe.
Yeah.
And then share this video, like it, give the thumbs up, please, Arthur Fonzarelli, and we all appreciate that. And we'll see you every 15th and 30th of the month for more Xtreme Memories. For Phenomenal Phil, for Mr. McPhenom, my name is Kris Kloss, and we'll see you next time right here on Xtreme Memories.
Xtreme Memories. He's just a talking man, working hard for the fans. He's just a talking man, talking about Rob Black. He's having extreme memories. Thank you.
Thank you for for watching Xtreme Memories, hosted by Kris Kloss. He's dropping new episodes every month on the 15th and 30th. You can be the first to tune in by subscribing to the Wrestling Chatter channel right here on YouTube. See you next time.